right, welcome, welcome, welcome. This is Alchemizing Energy, and today we are again going over the Diddy trial. This is really watching the World Show, so I'm going to let him talk. It was just a little brief pause there. I just wanted to say, okay, welcome to the show.
All right. So, Calvin, it's nice to be back with you again to discuss this huge trial, right?
Yeah, man, it's an amazing trial when you look at everything. People who are fans of hip hop, and then because of the kind of charge he has, you really want to know, how does somebody get caught up in a RICO? How does somebody get charged with this? Is this sex trafficking, or is he just a freak? I mean, there's a lot you got to think about here from a legal standpoint, and just from a hip hop standpoint, and just as normal people, we want to know, hey, what's going on with this case?
Right. Everybody wants to know. I've been in the courtroom every day. I get up in the morning at 3 o'clock, travel down to the city, attend the trial. Usually I'm in the main courtroom. This week I had an exchange with Puff. He came out and said, thanks for coming, things of that. So he's starting to recognize a lot of us that are in the courtroom every day. Before we get started, I just wanted to ask you, though, tell us about yourself, because a lot of my followers have on YouTube, they're asking about you. They love you, man. So tell us a little bit about your how
My
you
background.
represent criminals. Yes.
Okay, well, listen, my name is Attorney Calvin D. Johnson. I have been doing criminal defense almost for 25 years. Next year, I'll be in my 25th year of practice. Man, I'm a Dallas native. I grew up in two really rough neighborhoods, actually, believe it or not. When Dallas first got hit with crack cocaine in the 90s, my neighborhood actually was the gateway to the drugs getting to the city. And so I grew up with a lot of rough gangster kind of guys. And I realized they were going to jail a lot, paying bail bondsmen and lawyers a lot of money. So I decided I'm not going to be the dope dealer. I'm going to be the lawyer. And so that's kind of part of my story. And I also played basketball. Through that basketball relationship, I ended up meeting Larry Johnson, who played for the Charlotte Hornets and, of course, the New York Knicks. Go Knicks. And in addition to that, as later on in life, I played college basketball shortly, went to law school, got my law degree. First year out, running my own business. Actually ran into Chris Bosh's mom through my barber and my high school basketball coach. And then my college teammate was also a coach on that team. And I ended up attending the 2002 NBA draft with Chris Bosh. And I worked for Chris Bosh Foundation for a number of years. But the main thing is I've represented a lot of people in the federal courts, the criminal courts, and I've done some sports and entertainment stuff as well. But I really do about 80 to 90% of my practice in the criminal courts. And I would say about 15 to 20% in doing federal cases. I've dealt with RICO cases before, so I definitely understand how important those cases are. And also the ins and outs and the in-betweens of those kind of cases, so I can explain things to people a little bit about how you defend yourself, or if you can defend yourself based on your situation. So that's kind of who I am. And I'm somebody who I look at the law from a different perspective, because I grew up in a neighborhood where people were doing wrong. And I've been privately educated in law schools and universities to understand how to use the law to their advantage. And so a lot of people use me because I do understand both sides of the coin.
Okay. You have an extensive background. We appreciate having you on. It's a privilege indeed. I have a question for you. What are your colleagues in court throughout the week when you bump into people? Are they talking about this trial?
They are talking about it, because it's really an interesting conversation, because on one end, Puffy has a huge record label and a huge set of folks that he has working under him. And some of the things that are coming out about some of the people that we love, Kid Cudi, Puffy, Cassie, you hear Rick Ross's name, you're hearing all these names being thrown out. It's very interesting, because as hip hop fans, we look at these people and almost worship them in a sense. But as lawyers, we want to see, well, why are they charging him with this? And as the criminal defense lawyers, hey, how would you defend Puffy in a situation like this? And so that's the kind of conversations that we have.
Okay, very good. In the media, I know that they're saying different things that are not actually in court. Are there some questions you may have, some things that you heard that you might want to ask? Was it in court this week?
Well, I just want to know some of the depths, because you've been in the courtroom, and of course they can't have the cameras in there, and you're in there reporting. How well is the prosecution tying Puffy to the behavior, like Kid Cudi's situation with his car being blown up or set on fire, the hiring of the escorts? How closely are they tying Puffy to some of the criminal behavior that has been alleged?
In the pre-conference that they have before court starts, the judge actually said that a lot of this case being presented by the prosecutor is hearsay. So I thought that was striking. However, when it came to Kid Cudi, they really painted a great picture of Diddy burglarizing his home, but they never closed the deal to prove that he was actually in the house. It's still based on the testimony. But when it came to the arson, the defense brought out that the female DNA was found at the scene when the fire and the arson and all that happened, but they never tied it down to Diddy as what I would imagine from what I've seen on TV and hearing about other cases.
Well, I think who brought that up? The defense or the prosecution? Female being DNA being found. The defense.
It was the defense, yeah.
Sometimes you don't want to tie it down. It's a pretty interesting thing because remember, you got to create reasonable doubt, right? Your job is to create reasonable doubt. It's not to alleviate all doubt. So if you have female DNA and Puffy's not a female, then you're going to be able to say, well, there's no mention of a woman. Where's this woman? Maybe it was her. Maybe she is dating Kid Cudi and maybe she's a jilted lover type person who maybe left this. Maybe it was somebody else. But your job is to create reasonable doubt. You don't have to fully explain everything that you're doing as a defense attorney. You just got to create reasonable doubt. And you need to remind the jury that they need to be paying attention to that.
Okay. Yeah, they've been doing a great job with that. But just to answer your question on a grander scale, since the inception of the trial, they've been slowly breaking down every day and proving these points, especially about the force in the video, how he beat her. She explained that it was a freak off and he was trying to drag her back to the room.
Wow.
In the middle of a freak off, right?
Oh, man.
The first sex worker, he testified that when it occurred, he was in the room. Okay. Then you had the security guard, who is now a police officer, Officer Flores. He said that when he went to the room with Cassie and Diddy, that there was a sex worker sitting on the bed. Cassie testified that when this thing happened, there was a sex worker in the room. So they're slowly building this case, and they're just dropping one hammer at a time. They're also showing the obstruction. Last week, we couldn't talk about this because it just occurred, but they brought on David James, which was Diddy's executive assistant.
Mm-hmm.
And he said that Diddy had beat the chef. And so they tried to change the narrative. And Diddy had asked the executive assistant, well, go file a police report, say the chef attacked me. And he said he went for a drive and he never did that. So in court, they called that obstruction. What do you think?
Oh, wow. That's just pretty interesting. And so you got to be very careful with that. I mean, probably in the sense they're making it look like he's covering his tracks. And that can be very, very, very interesting. But that's just something that, that's one of those things where it seems like the prosecution is dropping little rat droppings of dirty behavior left and right to show that there's so many of these that all of these can't be a coincidence. And I think that's kind of where they're going based on what some of the things that you're telling me.
Right. One of the sex workers, I thought he really helped the case because he talked about he would advance the rooms for Diddy. So he would set up the Viagra. Diddy was taking some medication to increase his sperm count. He would put that in the room. Diddy had a Louis Vuitton medical bag that had all sorts of drugs in it. Tons of baby oil. In fact, I was sitting in court as they brought the baby oil in, and they have all these artifacts in court. And it's like, man, this is a lot of baby oil that they're bringing to show to everybody. Also condoms. So he would advance the rooms, right?
Yeah.
And Diddy had them doing all sorts of things, but there was no distinct hours like a 9 to 5.
Mm-hmm.
But he did say when Diddy went to the hotel where these alleged freak offs would take place, that he would go home for the night. So I thought that helped the case because he's painting a picture, unlike the prosecutors that's saying that Diddy was basically doing freak offs while at work under the establishment. He drew a line.
And see, that's the thing too. You know, it's one of those things where when it comes to that type of thing, are you sex trafficking? Are you just bringing people in to have sex with you, to enjoy them? Is Cassie bringing in? Is other people setting these freak offs up? So they're very, very interesting questions that I think the jury is going to have to ask themselves. Now, um, you know, typically when you think of sex trafficking, most people don't want to actually engage in the behavior. They're almost forced to engage in forced to engage in the behavior. They don't want to come. They're kind of tied in, and they kind of have to do it. I think the defense would be smart to start delineating between the sex trafficking and what sex trafficking is, and typically what a sex trafficking victim looks like. See, the delineation would be, if I'm being sex trafficked, I don't want to come. I'm being brought. I'm being coerced. There are things over my head. I don't have a way out. You want to make the jury think that, hey, that's a sex trafficking victim, as opposed to, I'm coming, I'm getting my money, I want to come do this, I've done this. Sometimes somebody else is setting it up. This is not something that I don't want to do. It's something that I want to do and I do for a living. And so I'm not really being trafficked. And so you want to try to delineate those types of things in their mind if you're going to have to do that. That's what I would try to do, you know?
Okay. So here's the big question I have for you. And I think there's a lot of confusion when it comes to this case, right? What's the difference between a RICO, racketeering, and the Mann Act? Could you break that down for us?
Well, the Mann Act actually can kind of, in a sense, encompass the RICO, because basically what's happening is you're using the RICO on this end to be able to show that there is a coordination. There's a criminal organization. So you're not just creating a situation where there's sex trafficking. You have an entire mechanism, organization, people, places, and methods upon which you're doing this to be able to participate in the sex trafficking that's happening. Now, the RICO can actually encapsulate other things, right? So you can be charged with a RICO, and then I'm violating the Mann Act, or I'm violating this act, or I'm violating that act. But that can be part of that RICO. So, because basically what they do to the RICO came about because back in the day, it was set up for the mob, right? And what would happen, the top capos at the mob would be so far away from the criminal behavior that they would never get their hands dirty. So they will make maybe one phone call, tell Paulie and Lugo to do A, B, and C, and Paulie and Lugo tell Tony and Antonio to do this, and it's always 3 or 4 steps away. You can't never say that they even knew what Tony and Antonio were doing at the bottom. But now with the RICO, even if Tony is talking to Lugo and Lugo's talking, the capo's talking to Lugo and Lugo's talking to Antonio and Tony, the capo doesn't have to directly talk to Antonio and Tony. It can be part of that flow chart. You see what I'm saying? So even though they never talked, and you might not even know, never met Antonio and Tony, but because you're directing Lugo to tell these two people to do your work, then that's your RICO. Because the mob back in the day, they were smart. They would stay 3 or 4 or 5 steps away from anything illegal. So they would never touch any of the drugs. That you could never see them out doing any enforcement of holding people up for money and extorting people. You would never see them involved in the prostitution on the streets. You would never see them stealing anything, but they would direct everything. And if you're directing everything and there's a number of people involved in it, that's a RICO. So there can be a RICO for theft. There can be a RICO for the Mann Act. There can be a RICO for selling drugs. That's kind of how they kind of flow in together.
Okay. A lot of people say because these men, even though the first one testified that he came as a dancer, basically Cassie offered, by means of Diddy, offered 3 or 4,000 for him to start doing these freak offs and having sex. How do you frame it with them already being in that industry and they're grown men, and Cassie is his girlfriend? Like, could this really be a RICO? That's the question.
And see, that's the argument that I'm going to make if I'm a criminal defense attorney. I mean, these people are grown. This is what they do for a living. This is what they want to do. Cassie sometimes is actually ordering the freak offs. And if you look at some of the text messages, she's actually happy to be ready to go. So if I'm a juror and if I'm a defense attorney talking to a jury, well, how do we know which one she wanted to do or didn't want to do? Like, how do we know that based on her own behavior? And the fact that these are grown men. These grown men are doing whatever they want to do. And see, that's the difference. And that's why I said, when I said earlier, I would try to delineate what we see typically as a sex trafficking victim, as opposed to what we see here. What we see here is not that. What you see there is that. So that's what I would try to delineate in my closing argument to the other side.
Okay, so this case to me sets a precedence because we have all these ball players and all sorts of athletes or whatnot, musicians, and they have teams. They have, just like in this case, they have security, they have a chief of staff, so forth and so on. They have chefs that are doing things as well. How do we draw the line here that going forward, if Diddy goes to jail for life, that they're not going to do this to everybody,
and
especially
see,
black men?
That's the thing that I'm concerned about. And I had several conversations with somebody about this very thing. When you look at the Bunny Ranch out in Nevada and what he was doing, and the regular pimps couldn't do it. When you look at Hugh Hefner, let's talk about Hugh Hefner. Nobody's ever charged Hugh Hefner with anything, ever. And he's been living in that mansion and bringing people in from different states and living that lifestyle for the longest. So people need to understand that this could be a very, very slippery slope to be able to go in and really, number one, lock people up and take their wealth. Because typically, if you're a man and you're a man of means and you have the ability to be able to have women like this and do stuff that you want to do because you got the money, you can do what you want to do. It might not be moral, but that's what you want to do if you want to do it. Well, see, that's the concern that I start having. That's why that's what I'm concerned about. I mean, I get it, but is it prostitution? Yeah. Is it is it freaky? Yeah, but is it actually sex trafficking? That's the delineation that I would try to make.
Okay, so it came out in court during week number 1 that Diddy had about 5 different houses, New York, Miami, LA, all over. So what would happen? They would go stay in LA and they couldn't find a local sex worker because some of these sex workers they were finding on Craigslist and Backpage, right?
Yeah.
Cassie testified to that. So when they couldn't find a local sex worker in LA, they would fly one from New York. So who's the sex worker here? Cassie or the guys they're hiring?
And see,
how are they framing it?
And see, that's what I'm saying. The guys they're hiring are the sex workers. Cassie's not. And sometimes she's actually setting it up. And so that's the thing that I'm concerned about. Like, you got that situation that's happening, and then it's all coming out on Puffy. But at the same time, Cassie is actually playing a part in ordering these people to do whatever she's doing. And then you look at some of the text messages, she actually either enjoyed it or actually set the thing up a number of times. So that's the thing that I'm concerned about. Cassie is not the sex worker. She's somebody a lot of times that willingly participated and set these things up. And so that's the concern that I have.
Okay. During Cassie's final testimony in court, she was very despondent, and they asked her, the prosecutor says, hey, how did you really feel about this or whatever? She said her final words, basically, I did it because I was a sex worker. So what impact does that have with her framing herself as a sex worker?
Well, sex workers don't call other sex workers and set up freak offs.
Wow.
And she, by the way, at the times probably is the person even paying for them. She's requesting them. So you're not a sex worker. You're an accomplice. And see, that's the argument I'm going to make. A lot of these people testifying, they're accomplices allegedly. So they're sitting around watching all of this happen and nobody says anything. And then more importantly, not just sitting around. A lot of the time setting it up, a lot of the times participating in it, a lot of the time saying, I can't wait for the next one. Those are some of the arguments that I'm going to make if I was representing Diddy. Exactly what I'm going to say. But see, that's where you got to start delineating what an actual A sex worker is, and B, an accomplice and a participant. And those are the things that I'm going to make the difference, because the state, I'm going to say, hey, the state makes the trafficking sound bad. They make these alleged victims sound bad. No, a sex trafficking victim, typically, usually a woman, sometimes it can be a man of children, they're actually being drugged across lines or being actually put into situations where they can't get out of it. They're actually being controlled by drugs and all these other things that are going on. And a lot of the times they never leave the site of their particular pimp or trafficker. We don't have that situation here. We have somebody who A, participated in it, B, other willing participants in it. And those are the things that, you got to start talking about.
Hey, real quick, you have like some chats. So do you want to wait until the end to actually go over?
Oh, we can answer some of them as we go. I mean, go back to some of the cut stuff in the chats. You don't mind, do you?
No. And shout out to Udo on the go. He's been helping me tremendously. I appreciate you. He's boots on the ground at the trial as well. Maybe we can get you in the house too. But yeah, go through the chat.
Like Amy, so to understand y'all what y'all saying, they are willing grown men, but prostitution is still illegal and they were being paid for sex. Yes, if that's the situation, that's a prostitution charge. It's not a RICO. And I'm not saying that there's not illegal behavior here, but it doesn't rise to the level of a federal RICO. That's the conversation. That's the argument that I would make as a defense attorney. Listen, did Puffy assault her and hit her in the open hallway in a video? Yes. Yeah, he should get in trouble for that. Did they get people and pay them for sex at times? Yes, they did, but that's prostitution. It's not a RICO. That's going to be the argument that I make.
Okay, so with the RICO, what about coercion? We talked about force. That's pretty clear on the video. In court, Cassie basically painted the picture that Diddy signed a 10-album, 10-year contract with her, but she only put out one album. When he met her, she was a model, and she also did these appearances where she would get money, right? Like a lot of these celebrities do. But after he locked her into these freak-offs, there was no more way for her to make money. So they're saying, listen, he took away all her supply, and now she's stuck doing freak-offs. How does that work?
Well, see, the one thing is that you can make it as an argument. Number one, it seems to be willingly participates in these things. And sometimes he's suggested having another one. So that tells me, hey, somebody wants to participate in this. In addition to that, is there anything saying that I won't give you A if you don't do B? Are there any texts or any situations that say, hey, if you don't do this freak off, I'm not going to give you any money. If you don't do this freak off, I'm not going to let you live with me. If you don't do this freak off, I'm going to turn your faucet off. I'm not going to let you do any work or go here or go there. Or is there any proof of that being said by Puffy to her? And if there's not, you just have a woman that's there that, hey, I'm with a man with a lot of means. He has a lot of money, and I want to get this money. So I'm gonna do what I think I need to do to get this money. And to me, that's not coercion. That's you making a grown person decision to compromise your own morals to get paid.
Okay, so the Friday before the trial started, that Friday, the defense was trying to paint Cassie as a very strong, and also she's an instigator in starting fights as well. So they did a really good job of explaining how she got involved in other fights. Remember at the bar, I think maybe we talked about it last time. She pulled the lady out the bar. Puff was not there. This girl took a picture of her. So she pulled out the bar and beat her and says, I tried to kill the bitch. So this is her. Another time there was a video that came out on her, and she had this friend that she called him on the phone, and she's like, I will kill you. Mother, I will kill you. We will bury you in the dirt. I will have someone kill you. So what do you think about that coming out on her? Does that affect the jury? I
think it does a little bit, because it shows that she can be a little gangster herself. You can't let somebody walk in and act like they're innocent. You don't want to attack the woman too much, but you do want to put a little droplets out there that, hey, she's not beyond threatening somebody. Hey, she was married to this guy but she kept coming back to see Puffy. The guy didn't even know. So she's away from Puffy, not doing anything with Puffy anymore. She's running right back over there. So you don't want to make her seem like she is just the Virgin Mary over there, but you don't want to go at her too hard. You just want to open the jury's mind to show them, hey, this person is willing to be gangster, is willing to be conniving, and is willing to kind of be a little cutthroat. And the reason why you want to do that, because what you want to say is, hey, the money about getting the $30 million, that was a cutthroat move. And with the way she thinks, she would be willing to do that. So you don't want to go at her too hard, because you don't want to turn the women in on the jury against yourself. But you do want to let them know, hey, she got a little gangster in her. She can be mean, she can be threatening, and she can be calculating. And so that's really what you're trying to do with that.
Okay. And I just want to say, for the sake of the audience, we're discussing this with an attorney today, criminal defense attorney. We do not condone abuse in any way, any sort of violence against women. In fact, that's what this channel is all about, against people abusing women and children, anyone for that sake. So just keep that in mind as you watch this. We're just approaching the facts of this case, not trying to promote anything beyond that. Now, getting back to this particular case, I wanted to ask you something that I noticed. I noticed with Cassie's mother and also with her best friend, Carrie Morgan, the defense didn't go into any of these beat ups, fights, anything of a sort. It seems that Agnifilio, he just helped the person on basically they built this whole picture about what a great person Puff was. And then on redirect, when the prosecutors came back up and says, hey, what happened in Jamaica with him beating her? The defense stood up and says, hey, wait a minute, I didn't bring that up. So can you help us understand, like, how does that work in court?
Well, what happens is sometimes you want to try to keep certain information out. If certain information does not pertain to the actual part of the RICO, then you want to try to keep it out. It's almost like prior bad acts, prior convictions are bad acts. So if there's other bad acts that happen that they're trying to get in, you want to try to keep those things out. So you probably heard an objection. There probably was a bit of a fight about that, because what you don't want to do is, you got the RICO case, you got this going. You don't want to go into every single thing that has happened. If you're Puffy, you don't want all of that stuff coming out if y'all had arguments and fights that are unrelated to this particular issue,
Okay. I noticed when Cassie's mother was leaving the stand, she tried to mean mug and Puff, and it was very prominent in the court. Do you think that this affects the jury in any way? I'm pretty sure they saw it.
It does. When witnesses look at the defendant with disdain, it could hurt. I actually prepare my clients for that, believe it or not. I try to make sure that they look straight. They don't make any emotion. Even when I got a witness coming off the stand, I literally will point to my paper and we'll look like we're having a conversation, so I can take that moment away from them. There are very little bitty things that happen during a trial that you got to be cognizant of, is where I try to keep that little moment from happening, because even in closing statements, the prosecutor will try to come over and point to the defendant and try to get some kind of look out of him, some kind of guilty look at when they're doing their closing statements. I don't let that happen. I talk to my defendant. I'm listening to them, but I'm going over stuff on paper with them. So I try to avoid those moments. You got to try to take those kinds of moments away from the prosecution when they're going against your defendant.
Okay. Also in court, when it comes to Cassie, they show basically she started off with Ryan Leslie. She cheated on him with Puff. And then with Puff, she cheated on him. He was cheating on her. But even with her current husband, she was cheating on Puff with this man as well. He's in the courtroom, by the way, listening. How does this affect her testimony?
I think it affects her some, because she's kind of went from guy to guy. Ryan Leslie was a come up for her initially. People who don't know Ryan Leslie is, he's a songwriter. He's a pretty entrepreneurial guy. He was smart enough to be able to, even though he's not a household name, he set his music up to where he can make it a decent amount of money so he could make it. Of course, he dated her. And Cassie's kind of went from guy to guy. I mean, you got Ryan's Leslie, you got Kid Cudi, you got Puffy, and who else? You got a couple other guys in there. So she's dated several different guys. And Kid Cudi actually was going to take her home to meet his parents, if I'm correct, in his part of the testimony. So Cassie has had several guys, and so she's kind of went around. And it seems like at times she goes from one hot guy to the next one. So you do want to show that she actually has had relationships outside of being with Puffy.
Right. So I know you really can't speak on it, but do you think this is shaping up to be a RICO?
To me, these are the concerns that I have because of Bad Boy Records and the power that's in the music industry. And I think that a lot of the jurors, especially in light of what has been happening recently with a lot of exposés on a lot of people, there's a lot of power in money, and there's a lot of power in the music industry. And to me, as a defense attorney, I wouldn't say it's a RICO. I'm just going to say, hey, Puffy's a freak. Puffy used his ability to be able to, get people to come out and do stuff. A lot of these people were willingly involved in doing what they were doing. To me, this is not a RICO. But I could see how one could call it one because of the power he has and the reach that he has as being a billionaire.
Okay. What about as far as Kid Cudi? It seemed that when he came in, he never really tried to look at Puff, but he came across as a real solid witness. He talked about how prior to him fooling around with Cassie and Diddy getting upset, he had a pretty calm life. Then this happened, and all of a sudden things are getting blown up. His house is being burglarized, and then him and Puff make peace, and his life goes back to normal. Does that say anything, even though they didn't close the gap? Does that speak for the case?
Well, I'll tell you, Kid Cudi was a very, very solid witness. He was a really good witness for the prosecution because it made it seem like, hey, he is a calm guy. He is a down-to-earth guy. He is somewhat believable. He's very articulate, very likable. And he seemed like, hey, man, the minute I start talking to this lady, strange things started happening to me, So things that would not normally happen, somebody sitting in my house, burning my car up, all of that stuff was kind of happening. And I think that the conversation that they say him and Puffy had where Puffy was like, what car? What do you mean? So it's one of those things where, it's like, you Mr. Biggs and something's happening to you, but I'm not going to say it's me. And I think that's what he alluded to. But the other good part was that they had a conversation. And after that conversation, he went his way. I'm just going to say, hey, man, look, we may have had a disagreement about a woman, but at the end of the day, we were okay. We're cool. I don't have a problem with him now. But that's natural. Any time two guys are fighting for the affection of a woman, that happens. That's what I would say.
In court, it came out, Kid Cudi said he felt like both of them were played because he did admit, he said he was in love with her dearly.
Yeah.
I'd like to ask those in the audience if you guys could please hit the like button and also share and subscribe. Think about that perhaps. One thing that came out in pre-conference before the trial started, the defense did not want it coming out because when the burglary happened, whoever broke in put the dog in the bathroom and the dog was terrorized, right? So Kid Cudi had testified that the dog was traumatized. The dog was never the same after that event. So the defense says, well, we don't want this coming up because there might be dog lovers in the jury. Could you give us some insight on that?
Yeah, because what you don't want to do is you don't want the prosecutors are trying to build a connection by any way they can by anybody that's on the jury. Like if you own a dog and somebody puts your dog in a bathroom and your dog ain't the same no more. I mean, a lot of people love their animals. I mean, I know people that have lost an animal and it's like they lost a person because that animal is loyal. And so when you do something like that to an animal, then some people just go like, man, anybody that would do that to an animal, I can't rock with them,
Right. I noticed with Don Richard, she gave her testimony. She talked about several times that Diddy had beaten Cassie. Very traumatic, punching her in the stomach, punching her in the head with a closed fist. And also, there were other celebrities present that really didn't do anything about it. However, under cross, they showed how she testified either differently or did not bring up these things at all. For instance, when Diddy beat Cassie so bad and drug her upstairs, and the next day he brought Dawn and her associate into the studio and basically said, "Hey, you better not say anything or you could end up dead." The defense showed that she was interviewed 8 times prior and she never stated that.
I think that's going to be important, number one, because she has an interest, right? She's making a statement that's going to benefit her interest because from my hear tell, she's suing Puffy, if that's correct. She's suing him as well. And so she's making statements to be able to benefit her in her own lawsuit. If you ask me 8 times about something, and this is the first time that I bring it up, and I've been interviewed 8 times, something as clear as beating someone and then threatening my life, if you ask me about that situation 8 times, I'm going to bring it up at some point, not just when it's coming to trial for him to go to jail. So I would be very, very, wary of her testimony when it came to that.
Okay. Some people are saying that there's statutes of limitation when it comes to the RICO for some of these things like arson or what have you. Is there a 10-year statute that these things shouldn't be in court? And if so, why are they?
It just depends, and I would have to go look that up because I don't have that off the top of my head. Murder, there is no statute of limitations. I know for some of the sex crimes, there's no statute of limitations, but for some things that there are, because what happens is if something goes so long, even if you're a defendant, sometimes it can be very difficult to even defend yourself because of the nature of what you're being charged with. Like if somebody says you burned something up 20 years ago, it's hard evidence-wise if I'm defending you to go back and get something to help me defend myself. And so that's why you got to be very careful. Sometimes the statute of limitations will step in on certain crimes, but when it comes to murder, and actually when it comes to kind of like any sexual crimes, there are really no statute of limitations with some of those things that are involving sex.
Okay. Is it true that Diddy will lose all of his money if he's convicted of RICO racketeering?
He probably will lose most of it because a lot of these lawsuits are going to eat his money up. And it's not just going to be the fact that he's going to be losing lawsuits. He's going to have to spend money to fight them. And see, that's the key, right? You got to spend money to fight the lawsuits because that's a lot of money. He has to have the best lawyers. You're talking $500, $600, $700, $800, $1,000 an hour for some of these lawyers. And you got several of them fighting 10, 20, 30 lawsuits. It could be a problem. Your money could go really, really fast.
Right. One of the things that came up in court, I overheard them talking to the judge about is that I guess Diddy has a certain amount of time to talk on the phone after court around 5:30. There's some sort of cutoff. So they've been letting us out of court at 3:00, but they wanted to extend it longer. So the defense says, hey, we don't have enough time with him. So we need this time. The judge said he had a hard time getting them to change that time in the jail as far as him being able to talk on the phone or through video. Mm-hmm. Wouldn't the judge have more pull than that?
They should, man, because honestly, when you're communicating with your lawyer, you're not supposed to be limited in that. You're supposed to be able to visit and talk to your client at any time. Now what they're probably going to say, the lawyers can go over to the jail, but it's when New York. I'm not trying to be out like that night like that in New York. So, you know what I'm saying? So it's one of those things, but the judge should have a lot more control because really, when it comes to seeing my clients, like if I go in the middle of the night, I'm able to see my client here in Dallas. It can be 2 or 3 in the morning. If I got to see him, I go see him. And because you're really supposed to have unlimited access to be able to see and talk to your client. So I think the judge, they should do a better job of controlling that. I'd get with the sheriff or who is running that federal jail and be like, hey, man, we got to, this guy needs to speak to his lawyer. We need to extend that time. Okay. That's what I would do.
I see.
I'm sorry. So I have a question real quick.
Sure.
because we did touch. I don't want before we go too far past it. So Diddy has a certain amount of assets. What happens to those assets? I heard that the state of New York was trying to get control of his assets at some point. And I know not well. I know that I think when Jay-Z had the state, didn't like the city of New York get control of those things when he got behind, and then they did an auction or something like that.
No, they can't take control of his stuff unless those judgments or unless he gets judgments against him. Right now, he's going to control his own money. He's going to use that money to pay whatever bills he got to pay to take care of his kids and to fight his cases. Hopefully, he's put some money in some trust and some of the other things that cannot be accessed, that can't be touched. I would imagine that he probably has a number of assets that you can't even touch. Like you put stuff in trust and other things, and other people make money. You can't go take that money. So if he's smart, he's probably set it up a way he can keep a lot of it, but he might lose a lot of it. Just the simple fact of judgments, court fees, attorney fees, and all the expenses that it costs to be Puffy. You have to realize Puffy got 4 or 5 houses around the country. He got a lot of people on payroll. All those things are continuing to go. So
right. For instance,
yeah,
he owns the catalog of Bad Boy. So does that get tampered with, or will someone be able to then buy out Bad Boy because if he goes to jail for life? Will someone just be able to come in, swoop in, and buy all that stuff? Or will he have even as a prisoner have some kind of thing or say so in how his companies get distributed, things like that? What happens to a prisoner when you have assets? Because think about this, Big Meech and them had assets, right? He comes out of jail, he's broke. So what happens with
Meech? And that situation is different. All the stuff is locked in the drugs. He has an asset that continues to generate royalties. However, I heard he did something smart, which a lot of people didn't pay attention to, that I did, because I was wondering why is he doing it. He gave Mace back his rights. He gave some of the people in the Danity Kane back their rights. He gave some of the other rappers that were on Bad Boy, he gave them their stuff back. And when I say he gave them their stuff back, when he gave them their stuff back, he had them sign NDAs, which means they were not allowed to talk publicly about anything that happened when he was at Bad Boy. Before he got arrested, he had started to give everybody their stuff back. And so I think he did a smart thing, because if they sign those NDAs, they're not going to really be able to say anything. And then on top of that, even if I'm coming to testify, I got an asset that I made with Puffy, this record. What is coming bad talking about Puffy, something I made with him? I'm depreciating my own asset. So I'm not going to say anything bad about this asset that I have that I made with him. And I got an NDA signed. So he did something that his lawyers probably told him to do, which I thought was pretty smart. I'll give you your publishing, and I'll give you your music rights to your songs that you made with us back. You signed an NDA. I thought that was very smart.
Okay, very good. New York Southern District has a 95% conviction rate. Do you think it's 95% because people take plea deals, and maybe that 5% are people like Puffy that are able to fight back? Or you think it doesn't matter about how much money you have?
I think it does matter how much money you have. Basically, you have two parties that are going against each other with almost unlimited assets, right? Puffy has a lot of money. And even though he's in jail, his catalog is still generating money, even as he sits in jail. So a lot of people have to bow down to the government, because if I'm a regular Joe Smo, and let's say I got a job that makes 6 figures, 100,000 a year, but I only got maybe a couple of grand a month that I can spend miscellaneously, right? Well, if I get hit with a RICO and I don't have a lot of money saved up, how am I going to fight the federal government? I'm not going to, if I get the retainer for the lawyer for my savings, I got to continue to pay the lawyer. Then sometimes I can't work while this thing is going on. So a lot of the times you're running into people who can't afford to fight the government, number one. Number two, the government does have unlimited resources. Unlimited resources are going to allow them to get all the subpoenas they need and get them quickly. They're going to have the best investigators that can work overtime, and they're going to do their job. They're going to have the best technology to be able to get the evidence that they need, and they're going to get it. They're going to have the best investigators to be able to investigate things, and they're going to do it. They're going to have the best computer people. And see, those are the things that as a government, because your resources are unlimited and you're going against the little guy, a lot of people will take a plea because they go, I don't have enough to fight against that kind of monster or machine moving against me. And most of the time, the government takes this time when they file these cases, because you notice before Puffy got picked up, there was talk of Puffy getting picked up. And that went on for at least a year. And during that year, they were doing a lot of stuff to make sure that they talked to as many people as possible, that they got their ducks in a row. So when they did come to court, they'd already have a somewhat strong case before they went in there. That's why a lot of people end up taking plea deals, because even you look at the recent situation of Big U, right? They've been watching Big U for a long time, because remember, when they turned over the hard drive to all of the taped phone calls, they said it was like 5 gigabytes of phone calls that they had taped to him, which means they've been watching him for a long time. So if you watch somebody long enough, they're going to make mistakes. If you watch somebody long enough, you're going to find somebody that's going to snitch on them, or you're going to find some kind of illegal behavior that you can hold them on, or some people connected to them that you can get the flip. If you watch somebody long enough, you're going to be able to do that. And that's the power the federal government has. And that's why they have that 95% conviction rate.
Wow. Thank you so much. This is such great insight. For those in the audience, in about 15 minutes, about 13 minutes, we're going to allow some of you to come up if you would like to come and ask some questions. And we want to thank you. Please hit the like button and also share and subscribe if you like the material. So I'm sitting in court, and all of a sudden they bring in these big guns that they had confiscated from Puffy's homes. The guns they showed were defaced. How can you get around that?
Well, the tough part about it, what do you mean, the federal government getting around that?
No, Diddy, how is he going to get around having guns that are defaced? The serial numbers were scratched off. They showed it in court.
Yeah, that's going to be a problem
around to the jury. They passed it around to the jury, yeah.
That's going to be a problem for him, because to me, it's almost like you got a ghost gun, right? And so when you got a ghost gun, that can be very, 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 it can be kind of touchy, because you can actually shoot somebody with these guns and they're not going to be in anybody's database or system. And so that's why that's going to be a problem for Puffy, having those guns, those ghost guns around. But, does that say it's part of the RICO? Is that part of being in a RICO? Or is that part of just having the guns that's not registered? So those are the arguments that you can try to make as a defense attorney, but having ghost guns is not a good look for him.
Right. The night he was arrested, they picked him up in New York, and actually the agent that presided over the arrest was there. And as I had pointed out last week, it was in the media at that time that Diddy was planning to move to more like a empty room. And I think the Fed got a secret. Someone told him, and they came in on him that day. They found all of these things that are tied to the freak off, baby oil, cameras, drugs, the Louis Vuitton bag that everybody's been talking about. How do you think that this is going to affect the case that he was arrested? He even had a hard drive, and they haven't showed us yet what was on the hard drive, but how is this going to affect him as far as the RICO is concerned?
It can affect him depending on A, what's on that hard drive. B, man, you're actually preparing. You got a lot of you got some legal stuff and a lot of illegal stuff with you while you're doing these freak offs. I don't think that that's a good look for him, especially you already kind of know that they're probably watching you. And it's to the point to where you still are participating or willing to even have illegal stuff on you, to the point of actually having, drugs and all these other stuff. But then once again, if you're a freak, hey, I can't arrest you for being a freak. But at the same time, when you start having all this illegal stuff and you got cameras and you got hard drives, that starts to cross the line, especially depending on what's on those hard drives. That can make up the world of difference.
Right. As far as someone in the audience said, celebrity scandalous, she says, I think he thought he would get bail. Isn't it strange that they didn't give him bail, even if he offered like $50 million?
It's not, because $50 million actually is only, what, 5% of what he's worth. He's worth $1 billion. In addition to that, somebody like Puffy, because he can get out, he has the means to either, you can cut leg monitor off, even if you have somebody consistently watching him. In addition to that, some of the criminality that you can participate in because you have money, some of the danger and some of the effects that you can have on witnesses or potential witnesses, because you're out, you can still do more. You still can do more. You still can threaten people. You still can use your money to create mayhem because you have all of this money. And then from what I heard is, I heard that he was even thinking about, before they picked him up, leaving the country. From what somebody was saying, that he was potentially planning on doing that. So that's the thing that I think that they were concerned about.
Okay. As we wrap this up, I just want to ask you a couple last questions. So the last day we were in court, it came up that basically when Kid Cudi's whole situation happened, Diddy and an accomplice, they didn't say who, went to the house to do the burglary, and they kidnapped one of the employees named Capricorn. So in court, they laid out the burglary, the arson. It was very convincing, even though I don't think they sold it up tight. But now when we go back to court on Tuesday, they're bringing in Capricorn, the person that called Cassie and said that Diddy was in the house, the person that was kidnapped, and that they mentioned in opening arguments that she was an employee that was kidnapped twice. And the second time she's kidnapped, they said that if this is the one, because it's a little bit hairy, Mia is another one that they were doing things with, but they said she was subjected to all of these lie detector tests. So again, the government is laying down this case, but don't you think that when she comes in and talk about kidnapping, it's going to be overwhelming?
That's going to be, now that's a problem. When you start taking people away that don't work for you, that don't have those relationships with you, and you're taking them against their will somewhere else, making them do stuff, that's a major problem for the defense. But remember what I said, the longer it goes on, they're going to start bringing stronger witnesses. Remember our last conversation? Cassie's
Right.
up there early. She's iffy at times. Some of the people are iffy at times. Don Richards may not be the best at times. Kid Cudi's even better. Now you got somebody's kidnapped. They're not in the industry. They don't have, end to burn one way or the other. But they're being taken against their will and held and being made to do stuff, and they won't let them go. Those are the types of witnesses that are going to be your stronger witnesses, that as you get to the end of your prosecution's case, that you want to leave that impression on the minds of the jurors. This one person is here who did nothing to nobody outside of being inside the house doing their job that day, were taken against their will and were made to do things against their will on more than one occasion.
Wow. So my final question is this. So as again, I was sitting in court, they bring in these big guns, but then I started thinking back because I heard each testimony. Cassie talked about the event. I guess Biggie was already killed, and they saw Suge Knight at Mel's Diner. David James, who was the executive assistant, he said that him and D-Rock, they were at the Mel's Diner. They saw Suge. Suge was like, "What's up?" All of a sudden, when they were inside the diner, 4 SUVs pull up. They see someone come with a gun and hand a gun to Suge. They go back to the house. They tell Puffy, "Hey, listen, Suge is down at the diner." They grab their guns, put on black, and they go down to the diner looking for Suge. They couldn't find him. Here's the question. How come they didn't tie Cassie? They didn't ask Cassie what kind of gun. They didn't ask David James what kind of gun to describe the guns that are in court, that were in court a couple days ago. Why didn't they tighten it up?
They should have tightened it up. But I think some of this by design. Sometimes you don't tighten it up, but you want to put it on the jurors' minds that they have access to guns, that this is what they do. This is how they operate. This is a criminal organization when they need to be a criminal organization. they have the wherewithal to make a phone call, and all of a sudden stuff start happening. And even maybe the guy at the top doesn't know the guy at the level 3, 4, and 5, but he can tell them what to do without even talking to them. That's part of your RICO.
Oh, okay, I see. So in this case, he has 4 different legal teams. I think he's paying excess of $10 million. Do you think that that's enough to beat the government in this case? What do you think?
I think it is. And, Puffy, if he has to put up another $10 or $5 million, he can do that. It won't be a money thing. He'll have the appropriate counsel to do what they need to do. But it gets to a point where the evidence is the evidence. I mean, as a lawyer, I can only do what was handed to me. It's almost, I always tell people, like, you ever play dominoes, right?
Yeah.
I tell people, good domino players can win with good hands. Great domino players can win with bad hands. I'm a great domino player, so I can win with bad hands. And that's just what you try to do, which means if I get a little bit of information, I try to use that information to the maximum. I try to use my hand to get whatever I can to get the most out of that particular hand that I can. And as lawyers, sometimes that's what we do. But even great domino players, you can't win with 6 doubles in your hand. So there's some times where a double can be, hey, kidnapping, hey, drugs, hey, a phone call, hey, a video with somebody getting beat up. So the more of that there is, you brought that to me. That was your situation before you hired me. It's my job to try to get around and maneuver around what you give me. And sometimes you don't give me much to work with. And sometimes you give me enough to work with where I can create reasonable doubt.
Okay. So I've been in court every day, sitting there, listening to all these different facts. And on the first day, I hear a sex worker come in and he talks about how Cassie's giving him $3,000 or $4,000 to have sex with her. Another day, they show the video several times, and they show in the video force, which is one of the main charges that they have on him. He's trying to drag her back to the room. There's an incident that we went over earlier in the video, how the chef, he beat the chef, but he tried to obstruct justice according to the prosecutors, right? You have Kid Cudi coming in saying that his house was burglarized. He's on the phone with Puff saying he's in the house, basically. You have the arson where they basically blow up the guy's car. And then after that, they made peace. There was no more trouble for Kid Cudi. He even put out a video thanking everybody. We saw that too. So with all of these consistent, and in fact, I told you on Tuesday when we go back to court, we have Capricorn, who is the employee that's going to testify how she was kidnapped. With all of these small points being dropped every day, is it really possible to beat this case?
I think it is, but you have to be really, really good. And the defense has not put on a case yet. So we haven't seen what the defense is going to put on as well, because now one of the advantages of defense attorneys is sometimes I know what they're going to bring up, but they might not know what I'm going to bring up because I don't have to give them my hand. So I think that there are ways to explain away some of this stuff, but the kidnapping, that's going to be tough. The video, him dragging her back in the room, oh, that's going to be tough. But what you do with those situations is you say, hey, is that an isolated incident or is that a RICO? Is that an isolated incident? Was that sex trafficking? Is that an isolated incident with the kidnapping? Or is that a situation where, hey, we got into a bad way over this woman, me and you, and then something happened individually? Is this a RICO or is this a situation that got out of hand? And so a lot of it is when you have the bad facts, what you want to do is try to isolate them and say, hey, they may be bad. They may even show some criminal behavior, but it's not a RICO. So you want to be able to compartmentalize each of those interactions that are negative for you and then question the other interactions where people played roles in, like Cassie wanted to do the freak offs. You caught Don Richards maybe lying a lot in some of her testimony. And the situation with Kid Cudi, hey, yeah, did they get into it over a woman? Yeah, but eventually they're cool now. They were just, hey, lovers spat, tug of war, you, me, and he kind of situation, right? So
right.
Those are the things that if you're a defense attorney, what you want to try to do is isolate the criminal behavior from being an actual RICO. And the approach that I would take. It's very difficult to do because Puffy's organization is so big. He has so much money and he has so many different people working for him.
Right. Is it possible for him to get past the RICO, but then get hit with sex trafficking, force, fraud, and coercion?
It is. And because those things are actually separate, they're actually separate offenses within that. And so he could get hit with some of this. But at the same time, it just depends. Just depends on, number one, what's going to happen the rest of this case. And then two, what kind of case is he going to put on? Because I would imagine he's going to have some really, really good folks, some really, really good investigators that have sat down and listened to everybody's testimony. And when they give their dates, Puffy, if he's smart, hey, go back and figure out what I was doing that day. Hey, they said they were over here. We were there. Were we there that day? So what you want to do is you want to be able to go back and you have a team of people. If I'm a defense attorney and I got a client with means, hey, we're going to go back and look at everything that they've said on camera, and we're going to try to rebut that.
Okay. So one final question I have for you. They brought in a sex worker by the name of the Punisher, and he gave a testimony that I think helped the defense. He said that he was performing on Cassie oral, and when he was finished, she scooched toward him, and the prosecutors really went crazy because they were trying to shut that down. Do you think that really helps the defense in this case?
Yeah, I think it does, because it's like she wanted to do what was going on. She wanted to participate in the behavior. She actually edged the behavior on. So those are things that are going to help because she's setting some of this up and she wants to do that. And so some people are going to say, hey, this isn't sex trafficking, and this is what you want to do personally for yourself. You're getting the gratification and you're setting it up. How can I blame that on him? You're a grown woman.
Right. Someone had asked in the comments that they bring up Meek Mill. I covered that on Tasha K's channel, how none of the homosexual as far as penetrating men has come up in trial. The only thing that came up was the ejaculation on nipples, which that appears to be gay when you look at it. But most people are going to consider that. But as far as these rumors about Meek Mill and the video that came out with him screaming and the Justin Bieber and all these things, none of that is in court so far. Not to say it won't come out, but so far in court, it was testified that the wife talked about Diddy, speaking about Cassie. She said to the sex worker, my husband is not gay. And also when Diddy and the sex worker in the event, I believe when they both urinated on Cassie, the sex worker tried to look him in the eyes, Diddy, and Diddy went crazy and said, get out of here. I'm not with that. So, so far, a lot of the things that are in the media are not in court. Another example is the baby oil. It came out in court. There's no drugs in the baby oil, no drugs. The only thing Diddy did with the baby oil, they would run hot water over the baby oil because he liked to see the men and the women with their skin shiny. And if they start to dull down a little bit, he'd say, apply more baby oil. So basically, he's the Al Capone of lube, but, not necessarily the Al Capone of, but there is a lot of drugs. There's guns. There's a lot of things on the table. But from what I'm understanding, there could be some hope here. One thing I will say, I did observe jurors, especially after Danny DeCane. I saw a juror tell another one she's lying. And the guy looked back and said, yeah, she's lying. So the jurors are very expressive in this case. And a lot of the witnesses have been proven to be untruth, so. And I'm gonna tell going forward, what do you think? What do you think about the case overall so far in 2 weeks?
This is the thing that I always try to tell people. There are a number of things that don't help Puffy. The kidnapping is going to be tough. Some of the allegations about Kid Cudi, because Kid Cudi seems very, very believable. Cassie didn't really hurt him as much as most people probably think she did. I think that there's some things where she was actually connected to some of it. With Dawn Richards, I think she just didn't, she seemed to be trying to, ingratiate some things, make it seem more like it worse than it was when she testified. And then I think that some people can kind of see that coming. I think Puffy's in trouble. A lot of this is because of just the sheer amount of instances. Like, for example, some things can be coincident, right? So if I'm a prosecutor, okay, let's say let's give them 4 or 5 coincidences. We'll give them those. But if I bring up 30 things, all of these 30 things cannot be coincidences. These things are connected, and they're connected because he controls the money. He's setting it up. He's bringing the workers in. He's renting. His assistant is renting the hotel rooms. His assistant is cleaning the hotel rooms up after the fact. He's ordering baby oil in advance. Lots of baby oil. More baby oil than a hospital full of babies. He got baby oil everywhere. So you have to think about those types of things as you're going to, as a prosecutor, bring up, hey, this is not 1 instance, 3 instances, 5. It's about 30 to 35 different instances where he is conducting RICO-like behavior by organizing, setting up, and being involved in criminality at each level. So that's what I'm going to say if I'm the prosecutors. Now, the defense is going to say, hey, yeah, is he a freak? Yes. Did he abuse Cassie at times? Yes. But that's not a RICO. He's doing that as just as a single person. This is a single instance of him doing A, B, and C. This is not him doing it as a criminal organization, that he's directing this stuff to happen. And so those are the kind of arguments you're going to make. But I think that's going to be a very difficult argument for him to make, because I think the prosecutors are going to bring up so many instances of different things, 30, 35, 40, 50 different things that have happened that just can't be coincident. Now, I know it's the state's burden to prove beyond a reasonable doubt, but I think eventually all of those little rat droppings are going to catch up with them. I think those rat droppings are going to make a turn eventually.
I have a question.
Yes.
So, is there a way to know how many? Does the defense know how many witnesses the prosecution is going? Is that normal? Like
they give you a witness list, but they don't call all of them. Like, for example, the reason why they give you a witness list, let's say there may be 50 people on the witness list. I'm not going to tell you what 25 I'm going to call, but I want you to get ready for all 50 of them. It makes it harder for the defense. Like, if you got 50 witnesses on the list, I got to figure out who I know you're going to call. And if you call somebody that I haven't prepped or I don't have stuff ready for, then it creates a problem for me. They just give you a witness list. It doesn't mean they're going to call all of them.
Right. And so here's the thing. From what I hear is that the jury is not sequestered to a hotel room in this case, which is really strange, right? Mm-hmm. They're not sequestered to be isolated. So that means they can go home and watch all this stuff. And I wanted to give you an example of some of the things. I know we said we're going to bring some of this stuff up when we talked about certain stuff, but there's one video where you'll hear, people do a lot of things, when people are leaving and coming. Mm-hmm. Mel, is it okay if I show you this one video, or did you want to bring it up for a certain thing?
Yeah, I just want to show the comment from the viewer Cassie, and whatever you want to show.
Okay. Oh yeah, I wanted to. Well, first before we'll do this first. So
okay.
So shouts out to this comment right here. It says so we did another episode, if you guys get a chance, on alchemizing energy as well as watching the world. We did this before with a panel, and Cassie 10022 said this episode was very informative. The lawyer shared a lot of information I didn't hear from other podcasts. Mel, well done. I think the lawyer is all you need after or during your commentary. Shouts out to Cassie 10022. I'm not sure if that's actually Cassie or whoever that is, but shouts out to that person. You think that might be Cassie?
No, I don't think so. But I don't think so. Her name is Cassie, and that's important. So I just wanted. So you do your video, and then I want to go through the comments and see what people are saying.
Yeah, I wanted to, because there's a question I wanted to ask. Okay, so you have a jury that's not sitting at home or not sitting in like a isolated thing, and they can still pull up YouTube. They can say don't do it, but if they're not sequestered into like a hotel room or something where everything is blocked off, then you have things
out the truck, bro.
Cudi, are you happy that you finally told your truth? What's next, Cudi?
Hey, Cudi, do you think your ex-girlfriend blew up your car because you was smashing her sister? Did you meet Cassie at a Diddy freak off? Did you suck Kanye's ass?
So that type of stuff. So you have a jury.
And shout out, that's Denat who did that recording. Just
Shouts
so you
out
know.
to Denat that said those things. But you imagine you have a jury that they're not stuck in one place. They could be watching all this, you know. So what do you think? Let's talk about the fact that the jury is not sequestered. Is that a normal thing? And do you think that there's something up to that?
Well, sometimes you don't want to sequester a jury because sometimes you want to let them feel comfortable. Because sometimes they feel locked up and they may speed past paying attention to things or make a come up with a ruling too fast and not really take their time looking at stuff because they've been sequestered. I just think in this situation, in the information age, man, you can't keep all the information about a case. I mean, sometimes even if you access social media just to open it up, you may not even be trying to look at something Puffy and Diddy, but if you go to YouTube, some Puffy and Diddy going to automatically come out just because that's what the world is talking about. So I think that it's okay if you're not going out seeking it and watching it and pressing on it when it comes out. I think you're fine. I just think a situation like this, you can't hide from the world. They're going to see some of it, but you want to try to limit it as much as you can. But the question of juries, sometimes you don't want to just make them feel like they're cooped up or have to make a decision in haste.
So now that we see that, you know, there's a lot of, from what I understand, is that outside, and I want to talk to Mel about the whole outside aspect, because, you know, when people leave the trial, there's a bunch of people outside. Again, the jury's probably leaving. I'm not sure if they're going out of a separate door, but, you know, just the media and the things that are being shouted as people like leave, these things could probably affect, you know, what they think or how they, whatever they're seeing, right? So, someone said how many people in power are involved in this. Who knows? But my main question I wanted to ask one is all the hoopla that happens outside of the courtroom. Like, how does that look? Is it really crazy outside there, or is it really calm?
No, it's really crazy. In the morning time, usually a lot of people are fighting over spaces in line. You have people doing line sitting, and then there's confusion because there's cutting line. And then after court, you know, there's a lot of people that are trying to get video footage. So it's a frenzy, especially with Alex Fine, Cassie's husband, leaving. Everybody's following intensely, trying to get good footage. I was able to secure good footage of Diddy's daughters walking to their vehicle. And people took the video and said, "Oh, they were trying to escape the court." So it's crazy out there. It's a madhouse, and you just don't know who's walking up and how everyone fits in.
So, you know, I saw that there were actually people outside that supposedly, allegedly, were being paid $20 an hour to have free Diddy T-shirts on. Are the jury around? Like, do they like exit from a different exit than everybody else does, where they don't see this hoopla going on?
Yeah, as far as the jury go, you know what? I see how they access the building, but I won't speak on it because I'm in the courtroom and I don't want them to say, I just don't want the word to get out. I'd rather keep that a secret. But as far as the people that had those shirts on, that was over the weekend. It wasn't even a court day, so the jurors wouldn't have seen that anyway. And that only happened. I haven't seen that in person. I'm at the court every day. They didn't come back since that day, pretty much. I think it was just
that was probably a
it
psychological.
was just a little publicity stunt. That's all.
Why aren't the jurors?
Someone just says, "Why aren't the jurors being protected?" These are a lot of questions that we have. I wonder the same. I never would imagine, like, to see the jurors and how they're moving around and so forth. And the other day, a lot of jurors were late, so we had to sit in court, just waiting for them to come. But they're catching the train and so forth. It's just, it's not what I imagined. You know, the first sex worker, when he came to testify on the first day, he didn't finish. So they said, we're going to have the agents take him home and agents bring him back to court. So I couldn't figure out, why would he be under the jurisdiction of agents? Do you have anything to say about that, Calvin Johnson?
Because sometimes those people, even though they got subpoenas, they don't want to testify. Like, if you're a sex worker, right? Do you want to come in court testifying? Like, your anonymity is important. When people hire you, they don't want you to go talk about it. So when you end up in court talking about it, that's not a good look for you. You know what I mean? So it's like, you don't want to testify, number one. You don't want to get blackballed. Number two, you understand, number one, the government's powerful, but puppies people are also powerful. And if you're doing this for celebrities, what celebrity person is going to hire you knowing that you was one of the guys that testified about what you did with them? That your anonymity is important. So you don't want to, you don't want to testify. But what the government does know, if a guy doesn't want to testify or a girl doesn't want to testify, sometimes they'll have somebody on your house to make sure you don't run off or go anywhere because you're subpoenaed to be there. So they can actually have somebody watch you, bring you there, and take you back home.
Okay. So do you think that any of these, and before I say that, shout out to Claire all the way from Scotland. We appreciate you tuning in to us over here in New York from Scotland. Do you think that, because everyone that didn't get indicted pretty much are probably co-conspirators, just like Donald Trump was with his attorney back in the day, right? So do you think that if they don't cooperate, basically they're being brought there to say, hey, if you don't do this, we're going to throw the book at you?
Of course, that's what the government does. The government will say, hey, they'll meet with a guy and they'll go like, hey, we're not targeting you. We know you're not the bad person, but you need to talk to us because we could charge you, but we just need your help. If you help us out, you don't have to worry about it. And most people, when you got the feds coming after you, man, you're going to be like, all right, what do you want to know? Because you don't want to get charged because typically you don't remember. We talked about this earlier. You don't have a lot of money to be able to fight them. You don't even want to be in a position to where you have to fight them. So if I can just go testify what I know about and y'all not going to charge me and I don't have to spend or try to spend money I don't have to defend myself and I don't have to go to jail, what do you want to know?
There was also situations where people, I think from what I heard, I'm not sure if this is right or not, Mel, please excuse me if I'm wrong, or please correct me if I'm wrong, that people got on the stand and they would ask them a question and they had to like actually clarify, well, do I have immunity? So I don't know why that wouldn't be established beforehand, but a lot of like the people, do you think they all have immunity, or do you think that that's a normal thing to make sure they have immunity? And what does that immunity entail that they will not
the immunity entails, as long as you testify truthful to the best of your knowledge, we're going to give you immunity. And so they're going to use that. They're going to give them immunity so that they can talk freely. So if I was involved in something illegal and I have to go testify, as a prosecutor, I'm going to tell my witness, I'm going to give you the immunity, because if I give you the immunity, then you can testify freely. But if I'm up there and you start asking me about stuff and I start pleading the fifth, it's going to look bad as a prosecutor, because then the juror is going to be like, well, what did he do? Why aren't they charging him? If he's pleading fifth, he's incriminating himself in the crime. So why are they having somebody who was a participant in the crime testify against somebody who they're trying to convict? Well, he's a criminal. He's a criminal. Why should I believe him? So you don't want that look to happen. So you give the immunity so that they can speak freely and that they can't actually claim the fifth. And when I say claim the Fifth Amendment of the United States Constitution protects you from having to testify against, basically telling it on yourself, basically, right? Self-incrimination.
Yeah, right.
I believe on Thursday, if I'm not mistaken, when we were going to lunch, I think his name was Kaplan. Kaplan came in. He was Diddy's assistant. He asked for immunity right there, and they had to put together a deal for him as we went to lunch. Is that normal? Why didn't they give him that deal before that day?
Typically, they have the deal in place before that day. Typically, you do one of two things. You have an immunity deal in place, or you do what they call a proffer session. Do y'all know what a proffer session is?
They mentioned it in court, though.
A proffer session is when you go in and they're questioning you and you want to be able to talk freely. But when you talk to them, you say, hey, look, I'm going to sign a proffer, which means any additional information I tell you, you can't charge me with any crimes. Now, typically those crimes don't include murder. Sometimes they can, but some prosecutors are smart enough, outside of killing somebody, tell me everything that you've done, right? And so I can tell them about all the drug deals I made, all the stuff that I've done. I had a guy one time, no joke. He had been buying a kilo of dope from a guy for 10 years a kilo every month, 1 or 2 kilos a month, but for 10 years. They caught him picking up his dope one time. Usually he would have a courier go get it, but this time the courier couldn't go. He had to go himself. So he went there one time and got caught, and that's the only time that they saw him. They knew he had done it, but they had charged the case state, but the feds were going to charge it federal because the guy that he was buying it from was in this big, huge federal indictment. They come to court. They talk to the prosecutor's like, we're coming to state court. Calvin, where's your client? And because I'm smart, I go like, something's wrong. You got 200 cases today. Why are you asking about my client? Kind of fell a little off. I call my client. I tell him, go upstairs on the 8th floor and wait in the restroom. We're on the 5th floor. I go back again. She asks again. I go like, something's wrong. My spidey senses went off. So I said, I'm gonna do it like this. I'm gonna wait till right around the lunch hour, and then she's gonna have to tell me what's going on. So I go back around 11:30. Cam, where's your client? Oh, he's on his way. He's parking. He's coming across the street. Okay, I'm gonna tell you the truth. Go next door. And it was the feds waiting next door for my client. They wanted to talk to him, and I said, I'll let you talk to him, but get your AUSA on the phone. We're gonna sign a proffer. Basically, what he was able to do is he was able to tell them about all those 10 years that he bought the key. The only key that they could charge him with is the one that was involved in the case that they were there for. So instead of getting probably a ton of dope connected to himself almost, he only had to answer for that 1 or 2 keys because the additional information we gave them about the previous 10 years, they could not use that. So you want the clients to sign a proffer before they go into a conversation with agents and the AUSA, which is the U.S. Attorney's Office. So that's what a proffer is.
But what about Keefe D in the case of Tupac Shakur? Didn't he sign a proffer and still got indicted some way? Maybe he did it in Nevada, I believe, right?
But let me tell you what the issue is. The issue is in the situation in Nevada, he probably did not admit to what he admitted to on his podcast. Because I remember watching Keefe D at first, and he was talking about the situation like he kind of knew it was happening. But the last few times I watched him on Vlad and a couple of other podcasts, he put himself in the car. And because he put himself in the car, and he put himself in the car actually with the guy who's shooting, that's a different situation. The other times that he was talking about it, from my knowledge, he was talking about he knew it was happening or he saw the guy get in the car. But the last few podcasts I'm watching, I'm like, this dude put himself in the car. He put himself right at the instance where the murder happened. You can't do that. That's where he went too far. He probably did not proffer that situation away. He probably didn't tell him that. But I think he ended up coming in to tell him that on these podcasts. And I think that's what messed this proffer up.
Okay, so shout out to Quasi in the audience. Nice to have you, brother, dear brother of mine. Africa had a good question. It says, do you believe that Cassie has been granted immunity from prosecution given indications that she may have been considered an unindicted co-conspirator in the matter?
Yes. Yes, because see, somebody like Cassie doesn't really have, they're not wealthy. They don't have a criminal record. They're a woman. Why wouldn't I want a woman that's not wealthy, that doesn't have a criminal record, who looks innocent? For the most part, she looks innocent when you look at her. That's a great witness for me. So of course I'm going to offer her a proffer. I'm going to let her proffer and give her immunity.
Okay, I see. So
there was a bunch of people asking, well, why isn't Cassie up for RICO or a part of going to get locked up or be brought to trial because she is immune?
She's not the big fish. She's not the big fish. They go after the big fish. And let me tell you what happens when they do this, right? The feds will come in. Let's say they got to talk to 8 people because there's 8 people involved in this conspiracy. Let's say us 3 involved in conspiracy and Puffy is the billionaire up top involved. And let's say you're number 1, I'm number 2, and DJ Genesis, you're number 3. You know what they're probably going to do? They're probably going to go to me or Genesis because, Mel, you're close enough to Puffy to where you know what's going on, and we want you or we want Puffy. They may come to me or Genesis, and specifically me, because I know what's going on downstream and I know what's going on upstream, and I don't have a criminal record, right? So you try to get the person that's situated the best, that has the least amount of criminality, that knows what's going on downstream and upstream, that I can use in court to tie all the pieces together.
Wow, that's amazing. Let's take a moment and please hit the like button, share, and subscribe if you like the material. Could you just take a moment and tell everybody how they could reach you, what you do, your company, and so forth as a lawyer?
Well, my name is Attorney Calvin D. Johnson. My website is theywon'tletmeout.com. Of course, I got that from the song, www.theywon'tletmeout.com. My phone number is 214-565-5600. I'm Attorney Calvin D. Johnson. I'm in the Dallas, Texas area. I'm a practicing criminal defense attorney. I've been doing this for 25 years. I've done state, I've done federal, I've done local stuff. I've also done a little bit of entertainment and sports. I used to work for Chris Bosh. I also represent a couple of musical artists here in Dallas. So for the most part, I do criminal defense, about 80% criminal defense, 80 to 90% criminal defense. And I've been doing it for a very, very long time. And I know what I'm doing, and I try to really, really build relationships with my clients. It's funny, I don't do a lot of advertising. All of my business actually comes by referral. I've done well enough to where I've represented enough people and have good enough name to where I really don't even have to advertise. I get phone calls day and night, just day and night, based off the referrals of people using me before and being happy with my services.
All right. Can you tell us about 50 Cent nemesis that you worked with that case?
Oh, I'll tell you a true story. So back in the day, man, when all of the big Meech stuff was going on, I'm at the courthouse. I'm getting on the elevator. This guy says, "Hey, man, I like how you carry yourself. Give me your card." Man, my lawyer, I'm going to fire him. We're not getting along. I might need another lawyer. So I give him my card. I go home that night about 12:30, I get a phone call. It's him. He go like, "Man, this is so-and-so." I said, "Who?" "You know, the guy you met earlier today on the elevator." "Hey, man, my lawyer went off my case, man. They locked me up. I'm in jail. I don't have a bond. I need you to set me a bond, man. How much you going to charge me to represent me?" And I was like, "Well, I need like $15,000 total. I need $7,500 right now." He said, "Okay, good. Bet, I got you." He said, "Call this number. We'll have that money to you. We'll have it wired to you shortly." So I do what he tells me to do. Within an hour, guy sends me $7,500, just like that. I was like, man, this dude's quick. So I go, sit down. He has a case in Dallas he's being charged with. The lawyer and him not getting along. I go get a bond set. I get him out. So I get him out. He pays me the rest of my money, and he goes like, "Man, I'll tell you, just keep me out for a while. I'm not trying to go to jail, drag my case out. I'll pay you $1,000 every time I come to court. We're good." So he had several court dates, no joke. He probably came to court another 10, 12 times. I made $1,000 each time. He came to my office one day. He was there, and I was a girl in there. Her hair and nails wasn't done. He just gave her like $500, walked out, and said, "Baby girl, listen, you don't need to be looking like they get your hair and nails done. Hair and nails done by your outfit." Walked out, didn't try to talk to her. He was spending money like it was water. But the thing that really piqued my interest was he would come to court, and he would have a guy drive him down in a limousine. And at the Dallas courthouse, there's a little bitty curve drive-in to where you curve and you go in and then you go out. But it's like a little curvature, and you can keep going down the street. He would park that limo there, and that limo would stay there for 3 hours, sometimes 4 hours while he was in court. And me, I'm thinking like, who has the money to pay a limo to bring them to court every time and just wait and just leave? And so as I'm talking to him, I'm like, "Man, what you doing, man? Is that your limo out there?" "Yeah, man, that's my limo." I said, man, what are you doing? Like, why do you have a limo coming out here waiting 3 or 4 hours for you for court?" "Oh, nah, man, we're good. I just got to go see my uncle, man. He live out there in Frisco. I just got to go out to my uncle in Frisco, Texas. I'm good. I got to go see Unc." So I'm like, okay. Well, we get ready to finish this case up. And I see the prosecutor. He said, "You hear about your boy?" I was like, "What?" "Yeah, man, he got busted. There was a big busting at Chicago and Atlanta. Your boy got caught up in the bust." What happened was the people in BMF had just got busted. The limo that he was driving to the courthouse, if you knew the BMF story, what they were doing is they were fitting these limos with all of these secret compartments. For you to get the dope out the limo, You couldn't just stick a dog on it and just pull it apart. You had these secret compartments where you have to put the radio on 105.1, cut the air on 73, cut the defroster on, and hit a button all at the same time for the compartment to open. And so they had these cars. And what I figured out is that was one of the cars that was waiting outside. And when he said he was going to Frisco, and most people don't know, Frisco, Texas is where Big Meech got picked up when he finally got arrested before he went to the penitentiary. He got arrested up here in Frisco, Texas, which is about 45 minutes to an hour from where I practice law at. He was living in a quiet neighborhood in a huge house, and nobody knew he was there.
Wow, that's amazing.
And so that guy was connected to the BMF people. That's what I realized, because I was like, that's why the limo was there. And him going to Frisco to see Unc, Meech was Unc.
Amazing. Good deal. We had a couple people that wanted to come up. We'd like to ask you, Genesis, can you drop the link? So I think it was a Kevin that wanted to come up and talk about something. Could we drop the link one more time and see if someone wants to come up and ask questions before we shut it down?
Yeah, so
we'll be
Kevin,
doing this show. Hold on. We'll be doing this show weekly. So tap in, lock in. Next weekend, hopefully we'll be back on, giving you the straight from the courtroom. I take notes every day. I get up every day. I go to court. It's not easy, but I want to sustain some sort of truth when it comes to this trial and really bring truth to the public, because a lot of people are just making up salacious stories. So I appreciate all of you that tuned in today, but I'm going to give it back over to DJ Genesis and also Calvin. Man, you're a gentleman and a scholar, and I appreciate everything about you, brother. And I want to make sure I come see you.
Do you have it set up to where you can't post links in your live? Because I've been posting the links. He's saying he doesn't. Do you see the link? The link isn't here. I'm pressing on what he said. It's just saying report.
I'm not sure.
You don't see a StreamYard link in the chat, you guys? Do y'all see the link?
No, I don't see it at all. I thought initially I saw it when you had posted it, though.
Well, you know what you could do? Copy and paste it yourself into your own chat. That way, because maybe I can't send it. Maybe you have to be the one that sends it.
Oh, okay. Let me see if I could find it. I just saw a post about TD Jakes. I would be so amazed if TD Jakes come to trial as a witness, man. That would make my day.
Oh my God,
bro! I'm telling you, I'd be finished. You know.
Oh man, we all would be, because his church is right up here in the Dallas area, so that's kind of crazy. But I tell you, man, I enjoy doing the show with you. First of all, because you're actually in the courtroom, you ask great questions. You're very informative, and you pay attention to what's happening in the courtroom. And you have a lot of people that are so geeked out when they go in there, they're not really going in there understanding what's going on and paying attention. But you do a great job of going in there, trying to understand, trying to get the impressions, and reporting it back to the people, man. That's what we want you to continue to do, Mel. Keep doing what you do. And we'll be coming on weekly, and we'll be doing this, and we'll be sharing it up to all our pages. We want you to watch us. We're the best team that are doing it. Attorney Galvin Johnson, DJ Genesis. We got Mel actually inside the courtroom. You're not going to get more scary than it is here.
Welcome to the panel, Africa. So, like, Africa made it. Here we go.
Hello. Thank you for the opportunity.
How you doing, Africa? What's up, buddy?
Doing good. Calvin, thank you for being so gracious with your time and knowledge.
Yes, sir.
Do I have the floor to ask a question?
Yes, go ahead.
All right. So I think I put my question in the chat, but I'll talk about it right here. And I was concerned about the Mann Act. And, it seems as if you don't necessarily, even if there is consent, it's possible, the language is broad enough to the point where it's possible where people might be found guilty. So let's say, I meet a girl in New York, I live in Texas, I fly out over here, we're having fun. Like the case that I just put up with the Djibouti versus the United States, there appears, there could be an issue over there. And I think that's what happened to the late, great Jack Johnson. I was just wondering what your opinion is on it.
Man, and that's the thing that I talk about, man. A guy's going to have to be careful when they decide to fly people out from nowadays, because from now on, you fly somebody out and it could be an issue for yourself. So those are the kinds of questions that you want to bring to a jury. Is it a violation? if the person consists to coming to see you, is that a violation of the Mann Act? Should we consider that a violation of the Mann Act? When somebody willingly comes out to do something that they want to do with you. So you want to start thinking about that. Is that just local prostitution, or is it a federal violation because somebody just happens to live in a different state? And then when you have to think about the Mann Act came along at a time where there was no internet, and actually when you think about it, there were no really reliable planes. People kind of did it by train, horse, or buggy. And so now you got situations where there's different modes of transportation. People can catch buses. People can catch planes to see somebody. There's stuff that you can do over the internet depending on what you're doing. And so you have to start thinking about those things as an attorney when you make your arguments when it comes to violations of the Mann Act.
Interesting. And then tell me if you agree with this. I have a hunch that Cassie's intention was to file the civil lawsuit, but she probably didn't anticipate that the feds were going to pick up the case and go against Diddy to the point where she had to air out certain information that she didn't want to air out, the time that her husband FaceTimed her and she was having sex with Diddy, a few weeks or a few days after she was supposedly, scared and everything.
Mm-hmm.
What's your opinion on that?
This is my opinion on that, man. And I'm going to be real with you because a lot of people are going to get mad at me. But as men, and particularly black men, if you have money, you got to be extremely careful because a lot of these women out here will use the opportunity that you're having those moments with them. If you stop messing with them, if you decided you no longer want to deal with them and you have a lot of money, some people are not just going to go away. They're going to look at the fact that you're a man of means. And some of these people are sneaky and conniving out here. I'll tell you in the past, without saying so much, I've worked for professional athletes and I've seen some of the stuff that gets pulled on them behind a woman knowing that they got some money. I mean, people out here, think about this. I mean, there's situations where you meet the right guy with $100 million, and let's say you get $3 or $4 or $5 million from him, you never have to work again. I mean, you're set. So think about what people are willing to do to be placed in that situation, or what they will be willing to do and stay in a situation like that. And so as men, we got to be extremely careful about those kinds of situations because people, when they know they're going to get, especially Cassie, I got $30 million. And I think she got $30 million from Diddy and $10 million from the hotel. So she's sitting pretty for the rest of her life. So men have to start thinking about that before they get themselves in these situations.
And I guess the last question I have is, so on Tuesday, supposedly Capricorn Clark, who is Diddy's personal assistant, who's the lady who claimed, Diddy forced her to drive to Kid Cudi's house, and she called Kid Cudi and said Diddy was in the house. Supposedly she's going to testify. If she testifies and she places, Diddy in the house, do you think that's enough, evidence to charge Diddy with arson?
I'm not saying it's going to be enough to charge him with arson, but it's going to be kind of suspect when you're sitting in the house, you break in my house and my car's on fire, and I'm dating the woman that you allegedly have control over, or you want control over. If that's the situation, that's not going to be a good look for Puffy. That's going to cause him a major problem. Anything involving Kid Cudi kind of causes him a problem because Kid Cudi seems to be a very likable witness. He seems to be somebody where if a regular person sits there and the way his disposition, the way he testifies, he seems to be one of which, and Mel, you stop me if I'm not wrong, he seems to be kind of mild-mannered and leveled out. And people like those kind of witnesses, to be honest with you.
He was really cool, and when he walked into the courtroom, everybody was turned around just to see him. He had a lot of fans in the courtroom, and also Diddy even turned around to check him out. So that tells you, he was definitely, they called Cassie the star witness, but he was a superstar witness too, in my opinion.
Yeah. That's why I wonder about anything involving Kid Cudi, man. It could be a problem for him because he's a likable guy.
Genesis, can you play the video briefly about Kid Cudi that I had you pull up, please?
Hey guys, so I just want to say, man, I've been seeing all the love and support, and I just want to say thank you so much, man. People been hitting me up the past week, just checking in, and even today, and it really means a lot to me, man. You guys are the best. I love y'all. This is a stressful situation. I'm glad it's behind me, and yeah, I love y'all, man. Big love. Go stream Neverland.
All right, very good. So that was right after court. He posted that, and Genesis had posted some of the guys had were trying to harass him a little bit as he was leaving the court, just like they did Gene Deal. As he came to the court on Wednesday, a lot of people were asking him some questions that kind of irritated him. I think he was really coming to, show his presence, but he came up against a lot of naysayers. So that was interesting. Shout out to you too, Quasi. Thank you for the kind words.
Wait, tell me
You were
about
really
that. Is that what were naysayers in what way? Did they like kind of crowd around him and ask him a bunch of questions? How did that go?
You could probably pull up that video when we go into the next question, but Gene Deal, just put in Gene Deal, and it was Denot that asked him those questions, and you can see he's greatly disturbed by it. So pull that up when we go into the next question. So while she's doing that, I just want to ask you something. What do you think about like Shannon Sharp, right? I don't want to get into his case, but it's quite frequent that a lot of guys are just starting with OnlyFans. So females are on there, they're getting money or what have you. It escalates when they find out, hey, I'm $100 million man. So what do you do going forward when you have your clients that are superstars with this kind of money and the women are offering them certain avenues? So what do you do?
Man, what it comes down to is, man, you're gonna have to just have some self-control, man, because if you don't have some self-control, if you go get some random person that you really don't know and they don't have as much to lose as you do, that's the problem. You're finding somebody on OnlyFans, that's the only thing they got. The only thing they got is OnlyFans. They're OnlyFans. They don't have anything else going on in their life. They don't have a career, don't have anything else to look forward to. So I always tell people you have to think about who you're dealing with, right? Some people are jumping off skyscrapers and some people are jumping off curbs. Who's going to be hurt the most when they land? The person jumping off the skyscraper.
Are saying
so
that
Shannon Sharp, you're $100 million man. You're up high, you're up here. She's jumping off a curb. It's not going to hurt her. When you land, you're flat. So when it happens like that, that's what's going to happen. So you got to pay attention to what you're doing. And then now, and I'll tell you, this whole world has changed because of the internet. I mean, you can almost dial up what you want, how you want it, how do you want them to look, what you want them to do. And when you have a lot of money, there are a lot of people willing to sell their souls for it.
Right.
You got to control yourself. You got to watch it.
So for the people just coming in, we're with the attorney Calvin Johnson, and I'm Mel Smith. I've been in the courtroom every day. So what I do is I bring back certain observations and facts, and then I sit down with the likes of Calvin, and he breaks it down from a legal perspective. And it's a very unique combination. DJ Genesis has brought us together. So we're doing this every week. We ask only that you like the video and also share and perhaps subscribe. You'll see me on various channels like Tasha K and other places I won't mention at this time. So stick with us. We're going to continue. I'll be going to the trial every day until the very end. There's a New York Times article that they just wrote about me. I think it just hit today or tomorrow. I have to look it up from the reporter. But we're getting Calvin Johnson. He's representing a lot of celebrities. We're getting his opinion live. You guys can come up and talk to an attorney. How much would it cost you? This guy here represents celebrities. So what do you imagine what it would cost to have him sitting in front of you? And we're bringing him to you here on Watching the World, where you can come up and just ask a question. You could even put your question in the comment box. But we want to hear from you. Come on up, pull up and ask your question. This is a rare moment in time where you get to hear information that's happening in the courtroom. I try to give you a perspective. I always document what Diddy's wearing. Like on Friday, I believe he had on a gray pair of gray sweater. dark gray pants. They only give him 5 outfits that he's approved for every week. So we're going to ask Calvin, does Diddy's facial expressions affect the jurors in this particular trial? Because he is, initially when he started on the first day, he looked so despondent. But when Cassie took the stand and she fell apart and it was revealed about the $10 million, he started doing the Diddy bop. He was turning around, blowing kisses to his family. He's very excited. Um, at the end of the day, I believe on Thursday, he looked back at us and he says, I love all you guys. So he's very expressive now. How does this affect the jury?
I think it does. He's a human being. Of course, he's going through a lot of stuff. No matter how much money you got, when you're going up against the federal government, man, hey, man, you're fighting for your life. I think it does affect some. Now, some people can read it. If you like Diddy, you can read it in a positive manner. If you don't like him, you can read it in a negative manner. But at the end of the day, man, he is human. And I try to tell people to have your whole life put out in front of the whole country when you're as big as Diddy, when you have daughters, you have sons, you have a mother, you got a lot of people who respect you in the industry. You got a lot of stuff coming out about yourself that you probably didn't want anybody to know about. Man, that's a lot to go through. So you got to be very, very careful about those things. And that's just what it is. And in terms of Diddy, man, whether you like him and like him or not, maybe he's done some things that he shouldn't have done. But I don't know if that arises to a RICO, but one way or the other, we'll see what happens.
Okay, Claire says, what's the chances of Diddy getting the sentence he deserves?
It depends on how you feel. If he gets a sentence, the problem that he's going to have is when they do the PSR, which is called a P-sentencing report, that they kind of do on you before they actually sentence you, because there's a guilt innocence part and then there's a sentencing part. There's going to be a lot of information there. I say a lot of information there. When doing sentencing, they can not only bring up stuff that you were convicted of, even though he doesn't really have any convictions in his history a lot, but they can bring up any bad acts that you've done, anything that's negative that you've done. So, for example, let's say that I'm thinking, well, I only have a couple of misdemeanors. That's all they can talk about. Nope. They can talk about any time you were accused of beating someone, kidnapping someone, setting something on fire. If you had a fight that they didn't really charge you with, they could bring it up. Any negative thing that's happened in your life, they actually can bring it up as part of sentencing. And so it could be very, very difficult for him to get a low sentence if he gets convicted because of all that other stuff that will probably come in. So if he gets convicted, he'll probably get a decent amount of time. And Diddy's no young buck. He's in his 50s, if I'm correct, right? So
he's like 55.
He's 55, yeah. So, man, even if he gets something like a 20-year sentence, man, that's going to put him, he wouldn't get out until he was 70, 71, 72. So that could be a problem for him.
So it was testified in court that Diddy is bipolar. How will that help the case for Diddy?
It helps him. It helps his case in the standpoint that he has a mental issues that cause him to be a particular way. What you don't want people to believe about you is that, hey, in my right mind, I'm doing this. If I'm doing this and I have some mental issue that's pushing me to be able to push the limits, then that's a different thing. That's not really who I am. It's who I am because of my condition. And so judges kind of take that into account when they're sentencing people, and juries can take that into account when they're looking at the believability of people and what they're willing to do and not willing to do.
I found that very interesting that the CEO of Abercrombie & Fitch, he was also given the same charge, but then the defense was that he had Alzheimer's, and then the court found him that he was unfit to stand for trial, and now he's off. So seems like it validates what you're saying.
Alzheimer's is a little different because you have to understand the nature of what you're being charged with. If I have Alzheimer's, I don't have an understanding of what they're charging me with because I can't remember anything. If I'm bipolar, yeah, I know what I'm being charged with. However, my behavior is not fully controllable, and that's a difference in the law. If my behavior isn't controllable, then I still can be held responsible for it. But if I have Alzheimer's, I don't understand enough. I can't remember enough upon which where I can help with my defense, or I can even understand what I'm being charged with.
What about the really avid drug abuse? I mean, they said he was on ketamine. He was on some kind of
But that's
Tuesday.
voluntary. When
So
you
that
choose
does
to-
not, like, say if you get like a psychosis, drug induced psychosis, and you're doing stuff based on that.
But you make
Is
the
that an
decision to
argument?
take the drug. Once you make the decision to take the drug, you possibly could have known that these drugs may affect you in a particular way. I had a guy in Golden Gloves one time. He took some PCP and something else. I call PCP that Superman, because for some people it makes them strong. I call it that DAT Superman. When you take that Superman, he threw a 240-pound off. He was only 145 pounds. He picked up and threw a 240-pound officer like he was in WWF off the porch. And he bit a girl in the back to where her back looked like a pomegranate because he was high on PCP. He was getting ready to go to the Golden Gloves Championship the next day and got high the day before he's supposed to catch his flight the next day. They found him guilty and he got time behind that because he chose to take the drug.
Wow,
that's amazing. Demetrius says that half the world is bipolar, not an excuse.
I get it. I got a question. Can the federal government seize his assets, and what would it take for the feds to freeze his money? They can try to seize his assets, but I think that the way he probably has some of it set up, if he's smart, if he saw this coming, he probably already started to move stuff in certain ways. He got a lot of kids he trusts, a lot of daughters he trusts. He probably got some money in trust. So if they try to seize his money, I would imagine most of it has already been set up in a place to where he can still access it where they can't get to it.
Amazing. Now, you're a defense attorney, so you probably would appreciate this. This came up in court. So we had the video. Cassie testified that this was a freak off, that she was trying to leave early. She was in there with Diddy and the man. Diddy beat her, gave her a black eye. Diddy went to take a shower or use the bathroom. She made a run for it. The defense tried to frame it that sometimes they would take bad drugs. So the defense, when they were dealing with this cross-examination, this point says to Cassie, is it possible that Diddy had taken bad drugs that day? That's why he was acting crazy.
I think that's another thing within itself, because I'm going to say, hey, if I'm taking some methamphetamine and I'm expected to be some methamphetamine and ends up being some fentanyl or some LSD, and I didn't know I was going to take LSD, that's different. And if we all are doing the drugs, then hey, that's different. So you want to try to alleviate as much as you can, even if you are taking drugs. Hey, for me to act like that, I have to be on drugs. That's not normally who I am. So even though that does not keep you from being held criminally guilty or negligent for doing that, it still creates a little bit of a buffer of, when I'm normal, I don't do this. Something must have happened to cause me to do this. So you want to make sure that they don't just think you're a monster, that in your right mind, I go out and do stuff like this.
Yeah, they started off the trial stating that Diddy basically was a monster and that the audience would see things, the jury would see things that would be very incriminating. They painted a picture of him just being out of control, on drugs, with guns, hurting people. And they've showed that, and this is what I really want to ask you. But first I want to say this. DJ Genesis, can you get ready to play the video of Gene Deal? I want to ask you this. All of the witnesses pretty much have testified that I've seen in court that he beat Cassie nearly to death, right? But now we're getting into the scope where he beats the chef. He's threatening to kill Dawn Rashad, even though her testimony fell apart. And they're also showing that he beat other people. So now it's not just domestic violence that the defense is trying to frame it. He's beating people that has nothing to do with his lovers. What do you think?
Why were none of these things ever brought up? Why were there not police reports made behind these things? Those are the kind of questions I'm going to ask. Why did these people come forward before now? Those are the kind of questions that I'm going to ask if I'm which I am a criminal defense attorney. I'm going to ask as the defense because I'm going to say, hey, why nobody ever brought this up before now? And what does this have to do with this situation? And of course, they're going to say, yeah, when he gets mad, this is what he do. This is what he does. When you don't do what he wants you to do, this is what he does. But I'm going to still say, well, why didn't any of this come out before now? I'm going to make that argument. That's what I only thing I can say. And of course they can have answers for it, but I'm going to argue that, hey, you know, why didn't anybody bring that up before now?
Here's a question though. Like, is it assumed that when you are testifying, it's under penalty of perjury? So therefore they are assuming that everybody that is testifying is telling the truth. So that's the proof. Or do you have to also like show proof of what you're saying, even though people are testifying that this is what happened?
People lie all the time. You're going to tell the story in a way that benefits you. Everybody's not going to tell the truth just because you put your hand on the Bible and I get people to lie all the time. Matter of fact, I tell my clients, if we're going to trial, don't get upset because they lie. You probably knew they were going to lie. So why are we over here acting like, oh my God, I can't believe she said that. Why do you think we're here in the first place? She probably lied. So don't act surprised that they're going to lie or going to exaggerate certain things. You should already know that. So I tell my clients not to react when they do, because that's just something that's par for the course. Everybody's not going to be honest. When there's money involved and freedom involved, yeah, I'm going to say some things that are going to help me. If I'm Don Richard and I don't want to sue them, I want my money, I'm going to say certain things.
Can I tell my story? Yes,
go ahead.
So I had a DWI.
Mm-hmm.
They had the police get up there and they were like, it was the worst in my 25 years. I have never seen a person DWI this bad. And I'm like, what? You know what I'm saying?
That's what they do.
Yeah. Honey, they get the police up there. Honey, in my 25, honey, I've been a police for 50 years and it was the worst thing I've ever seen in my life.
But see, that's what they're going to do. But see, that's what they're going to do. And you got to expect that they're going to try to say what they need to say for the defense. I remember questioning a couple of police officers one time, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, listen, answer the question. I know you don't want to say anything positive about my client, but you got to tell the truth. You just can't say the bad stuff and then the good stuff you just ignore. And juries pick up on that. They also pick up when officers try to exaggerate what's happening too as well. Because see, sometimes some jurors don't just put themselves as, hey, I'm just a juror. What if I was the person driving that car? Or what if I was the person accused of that crime and this person was doing this? So you got to remember that occurs too as well. But everybody's not going to tell the truth. You can never assume that.
So I want to bring up the psychologist that they had. The psychologist, she came in and she gave a great testimony talking about coping mechanisms and so forth. I know Demetrius Young that's in the audience. She has a lot of background with that. But she painted a picture. She said that usually when it's a criminal case, usually the defendant tends to forget things that happen, right? But if you turn that same case into a civil case, then all of a sudden they start recalling these memories because they're trying to get money. Do you believe that made a big difference in this case with the jury hearing that?
It does, because when you think about it, listen, when it's the difference between me having to work again and never working again, me being instantly a millionaire, and we're talking a $30 million. Hey, like I know somebody lie for $20. You put $30 million up there. Hey, man, I'm going to start telling you the big fibs because I want to make sure that I secure this bag. I want to make sure I keep this money. I want to make sure that I'm put myself in a position to get paid. If I'm Don Richards and I saw Cassie get 30 million, oh, my story is at least worth 5, 2, 3, 4, something. So I'm more likely to say things that may not be true or actually exaggerate things that actually happen or add a little sauce to it.
You know what I'm going to say real quick.
Hold on.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
The same lawyer at one point that was involved with the Diddy trial at some point that was getting I think at some point he had a hotline open to where he was getting a bunch of people that said, hey, if you have had anything happen with Diddy, go on this hotline, Bugsby, right?
Yeah.
So he got taken off the case, right? So now he's going against what's his name? Shay. He's going against Shay. So now he didn't.
Shannon Sharp.
Shannon Sharp. So here's the thing. So are any of those the people that he collected that said that something happened? Will the prosecutors would that be sound thing to do for the prosecutor to just take over this hotline? That Was he a part of the prosecution? Why was he even doing it? Like, what is that about?
Now, let me tell you what they do with that. That's more civil, so it's not really a prosecutor kind of situation. Tony Busby is going after. He's going after civil judgments. He's trying to get money. That's a civil system, and so that's a different system than the criminal system. And so when you're in the civil system, the burden of proof is different. It's preponderance of the evidence, and then when you at the criminal system is beyond a reasonable doubt, and the results are different. There's a guilt innocence in terms of criminal, and then there's money judgments and negligence involved in typically the civil cases. So that's a little different. And Tony Busby, you got to be careful with those people, because it's specifically when it went against Jay-Z, some of the story, and don't get me wrong, Jay-Z has probably done his things in his life or whatnot. But when they said he was doing something, I was like, oh man, that's crazy. I never believed that for a minute. And especially with the more of the story came out, I said, come on, man, what dad is going to, if my daughter's 13, 14 years old, I'm going to drive 5 or 6 hours and I don't remember that. And what is a 13-year-old being brought that far? See, a lot of the red flags came off when I was listening to that story. So you got to watch some of these ambulance chasing civil lawyers, because they'll try to make up things because they know that the particular folks like Jay-Z and Puffy and some of the other people have reputations that they're trying to protect. And they have contracts and media partners that they have sponsorships with that won't like negative things coming out. And so they'll use those things against you even when you didn't do anything. And some people have a hard time. Well, if you didn't do anything, why you pay the judgment? Because sometimes I'd pay $1 million if I've been to get 100 million if this thing never comes out, because I'd rather deal with it. I'd rather give them $1 million and get my other 99 and not have to worry about losing my name trying to fight this case. Some people will go ahead and pay.
Welcome to the panel, Nikki. I think Mel wanted to say
Hi.
something.
Thank you. I just wanted to come up and say thank you to Mel, because I was on another channel yesterday and saw your interview, and I just wanted to say thanks for realizing the importance of having our brown and red journalist in the courtroom. And I realized that it's a double-edged sword, because there aren't cameras in the courtroom, but then it gives our independent journalists a voice. And I mean, they're killing it. They're doing good. I'm from Indiana, and we had a while ago the Delphi trial, and that's the only other time I've seen where there wasn't cameras in the courtroom. And even our news journalists had to hire sitters, line sitters, and they would struggle with being there every day, and going through that and getting there at the crack of dawn and having to wait in line and all like that. So I just wanted to say thanks for understanding that, and supporting our Black journalism.
Hey, I'm glad to do that, and I'm also glad to support people that have been suffering abuse in any form, because it's just terrible. And the more and including yourself, I remember your voice, so I know who you are. As we band together, we're working together, and all we're doing is just asking everybody to get behind and really follow this. And if you know someone being abused, to always speak out. You said something that triggered a question with me for Calvin Johnson. Do you think this Diddy case, and you have one of the top ranking hip hop guys of all time, right? Do you think that this affects a Black guy on the side of the road getting pulled over by police officers? Do you think that this case and the image of Black men, we got Suge Knight in jail, R. Kelly, Diddy, Bill Cosby, the list goes on and on. What's your take on that level? What are your colleagues saying?
Well, I'm smart, and I always use my third eye when I look at this. When you start taking down some of the most powerful African-American men in the country, one at a time, I have to pay attention to that. Now, did these men contribute to their own downfall? Oh, definitely they did. But at the same time, I always keep my third eye open, because what about Jeffrey Epstein? What happened to his stuff? Why see the Epstein situation, that stuff's not coming out like Diddy. I mean, we get to talk about Kid Cudi, Cassie. They're bringing up Rick Ross's name, Usher's name. But when it comes to Epstein and Weinstein, Harvey Weinstein, and you got your you got your other folks that have done stuff. Their cases are not as public. It just seems to me that the downfall of the black man is on full display when it comes to some of ours. And the effect that it has on us in the criminal justice system is this. If Puffy Combs can get charged with something like this, and he's a billionaire, is anybody else safe from being targeted for doing something? And those are the things when I say it affects all of us going down the road, because if we make it, you can feel like, hey, if the government really wants me, no matter how much money I have, they can come take it all away if I get too powerful. So there's some people that use that and look at that to say, hey, look, they're taking this black man down. Now, don't get me wrong, man, hitting Cassie, that's wrong. I'm not down with that. If you touch a woman, I got a daughter. I'm not playing with you. You touch my daughter, I'm getting you in. I don't care how many bodyguards you got. I'm going to get you eventually. But at the same time, when you look at it from an aesthetic standpoint of rich and powerful black men that have been taken down, and you're talking about Puffy. Puffy actually owns his masters. He's probably one of the most wealthiest guys that actually owns all his masters that was going to make money and until infinity off of these masters. So when you got somebody that has that kind of power, it's a different ballgame. And so, yes, I'm looking at it. And yes, I think that it affects black men from the top to the bottom, because if you affect him at the top and he's a billionaire, everybody else is fair game. This is the way I see it.
Now, I've been sitting in the courtroom every day, and I just thought to myself this weekend, it really hit me hard. I'm like, what it would be if Mary J. Blige showed up, Jay-Z. No one has showed up except one guy, and that's Charlie Lucci. That's a good friend of his for a long time. Why aren't his friends showing up in this time of need?
Hey, man, I'm going to tell you something. When all this stuff started coming out, I saw Puffy at a party. He went to a party. And Flavor Flav was standing next to him. And Flavor Flav wouldn't even talk to him. Wouldn't even acknowledge him. I said, man, if you standing next to Flavor Flav and you Puffy, and Flavor Flav won't even acknowledge that you're there, hey, man, it's pretty bad. People got to the point they don't even want to have any conversations with Puffy because they don't want the feds to come after them. So I don't expect people to stand up, for me in situations like that. And we all have to realize, we got to be honest. We actually think we have more friends than we actually have. We think we got more solid people than we actually have. I always have a saying, and everybody laughs when I say this. I say, I'm just trying to stay solid in a world full of jello. And so when I say that, people laugh and they go like, what? I said, I'm trying to stay solid in a world full of jello, because I know there's jello all around me. I'm smart enough to know I'm solid, but I know it's jello all around me and I accept it. And so a lot of your friends, especially when it comes to sex trafficking, anything sex related, oh man, everybody gonna run from you like the plague, whether you did it or not. I'm just gonna be honest with you. That's been my experience.
What about there's no honor amongst thieves? What about that whole thing?
Well, a lot of these record executives, they still look. A lot of them, they steal from their artists. They get their artists involved in shady contracts. I mean, so they got their own stuff that they got to worry about. And then you have to think about it. Some of them have stuff that they probably have done. And they're like, man, you know what? I had an NDA signed 2 years ago with a girl, the situation I had a situation where I had an employee leave because they thought I was harassing her. So I'm going to stay away from Puffy because I don't want them to start looking at me. I start jumping up in Puffy's face, showing support for him. Next thing you know, they looking at me. Oh, man, he must be pretty tight with Puffy. He's there every day. Nobody else is there. Let's look at him, too. Man, when the feds come after you, it's like cutting the lights on and the roaches running. And that's what it is. It's the truth.
Mel, can I kindly ask another question?
Sure.
So when it came to the testimony from Cassie's Ventura's mother, she said at one point she got an email from Cassie saying that Diddy was requesting $20,000 or he was going to release the video footage of the freak-offs. So she ended up taking a home equity loan of $20,000, and she wired it to Diddy. In Diddy's defense, I guess they wired the money back. But when that testimony was given in court, I realized that Diddy waived off his attorneys, and they decided not to issue like a rebuttal. Do you have an idea like what the legal like strategy or legal basis was for that? Because they didn't say anything or make any comment about that, and I found that kind of odd. Like, wasn't that like some kind of like admission of like extortion and fraud or whatever.
Could I give the courtroom version of that, and then you elaborate on the legal?
Yeah, go ahead.
So the mother was put into the same category as I said with Curry Morgan, her best friend. The defense used a strategy that probably very few of us picked up on, but they just wanted to survive the witness because she was such a good witness. And they didn't want her to get rowdy in there and start saying he beat my daughter and crying. And, if it had went there, we got a different type of case. The defense was very smart. They let her answer her questions, and they said, "Have a good day, ma'am." And she walked off the stand. She was looking at Diddy like, "I have all the smoke for you." She was staring at him, and they had to basically guide her out of there. But she wasn't happy until she looked him in the eyes, which I don't think she got.
Derek, connect your mic and your video. You have to connect the mic and the video in the background in the back chat. So
okay, so let me tell y'all this. Let me keep it 100. When I have a witness like that can be very sympathetic, I try to hurry up and get them off the stand. I'm glad you said that, Mel, because it's exactly where I'm going. What benefit does it do me to talk about some money that was wired one way or the other? If I wire it back, Cassie could have just been trying to run game on her mom to get some money because she's running out of money. But I'm not going to go and question that lady about that. To me, that doesn't really do anything for me. And then on top of that, I'm Diddy. I'm worth $1 billion. What do I need your $20,000 for, honestly? That doesn't even make sense to me. So I'm not going to even argue about that. I'm a billionaire. I don't need your $20,000. But I'm not going to say that because then I look like a butthole. I look like I got all this money and I'm trying to big up you. And so why go back and forth with that witness who is somebody's mother? People have respect for people's mothers. So you don't want to ever try to go after the throat of somebody's mom. They're a very nice witness. They're a favorable witness. They're a sympathetic witness. You don't want to rattle them because you'll seem like a bully. You'll seem like you're the same intimidating people that they're making you out to be. So you don't question her. You let her get off the stand.
Got you.
So here's another question for you. When it gets back to the psychologist, right?
Mm-hmm.
She gave all this testimony, and I felt like she was swaying everybody. I mean, she was putting everybody to sleep, but for those who paid attention, she built a strong case and story. However, the defense showed that she gave a cookie cutter story, never spoke to any of the defendants or Cassie witnesses. She didn't speak to anybody. And it came out she was getting paid $600 an hour.
Hello?
What are your thoughts?
See, that's important, man. You know, some of these.
Anybody hear me?
I'm sorry. We have another person that just joined. Welcome to the channel. We have Africa. We have Derek. Some people.
Hold on, Derek.
Sorry. Hey, how you doing?
Let him answer that. Hold on, Derek. Go ahead and finish your answer, and then we'll take Derek, all right?
Well, sometimes you got to be careful because sometimes they bring the experts on that really don't do a lot. And they don't add a lot of value to these cases. And sometimes they try to go out and ask questions, and sometimes people just don't want to talk to them. So sometimes they can reach out, and especially in a situation like this, because you have to realize some of the people that they're talking to still work in this industry. So some of them still are recording music. Some of them still are assistants at music labels. Some of them are out on tour. Some of them work with entertainment acts. You don't want your name coming up in a Diddy trial because you don't want to be like, hey, I'm somebody who goes and tells my artist business, or I tell industry business. And so a lot of those people just aren't going to talk to you. So they can hire these psychologists to try to go talk to people and go do this and go do that. And then sometimes, even if they go talk to somebody, that person doesn't want to talk to them. So when it comes to psychologists, that's one thing. And then when it comes to experts themselves, that's another thing.
Yeah, I felt like once that came out, they pretty much shut her down. We like to ask everybody to hit the like button, share and subscribe. We want to take a moment now because we have a lot more people here. Calvin, I hate to keep doing this to you, but just tell everybody who you are and where you're from and your attorney.
I'm attorney Calvin D. Johnson. I'm a criminal defense lawyer. I've been practicing law for the last almost 25 years. I've represented professional athletes and some entertainers. I have did federal, state, and local cases. I've done a lot of stuff in terms of Fed cases, RICOs, a bunch of different stuff. So I've handled cases at all levels and all kind of cases. So drug cases, trafficking cases, human trafficking cases, pimps, prostitution, all that kind of stuff. Fed cases for guys that got caught up in that kind of stuff. So I definitely understand the lay of the land when it comes to this Puffy case.
Okay, very good. He even represented the likes of Big Meech, which is a very interesting case, and so many others.
Is one of his underlings at one point. This guy, I won't say his name, but he ended up representing him, and he actually was working for Big Meech back in the day. Okay,
awesome. And my name is Mel. I'm in the courthouse every day, and I'm bringing back facts, and I'm having the likes of Calvin, an awesome attorney, break it down and tell us what it means from a legal standpoint. So now we're going to have Derek ask his question.
Okay. Hey, hello to everyone that's there. I'm Derek. I'm from Michigan, and thank you all for having me here. Now, I'm hearing everything you guys are saying. I think you guys are wonderful. I think you guys are great, but I think that we're missing the entire focus here. So I think we need to refocus everything that's being looked at, everything that's being said, because this appears one way, but it's not what it appears to be. This appears as everything that we're seeing, our attention is being directed towards one direction. They're trying to paint a particular directive or otherwise known as a certain narrative, but that's not even it. So the real case, the real focus really should be on what's not being said, on what's not being seen, because they have us talking about everything that they're showing us, which of course is not televised. So now let's talk about what's not being said, because if you turn to any YouTube channel, any news station, everybody's saying the same thing. It's just different variations. And I'm over here thinking, well, what about the elephant in the room?
What elephant are you referring to? Tell us, talk to us.
Well, let's think about it. Let's look at everything. Everybody can say the same thing. If anybody's been watching this, who doesn't know what's really going on, who wasn't there, think about it. If you were not there, nobody here was at a Diddy party, but me. I'm the only one who actually attended a Diddy party. So think about it. Everything that if you were not there, you don't know. So what you're going on is what you're being shown. You ask the question, who showed you this? Why are they showing you this? Why are certain people, think about, you got certain people, it's particular people who are testifying. And these people were allegedly there. They weren't there for all of the parties. What about the rest of the parties? What about everything that was going on? What about the real sponsor? Diddy is not even the real sponsor of these parties. This is a front. All this is a front.
But at the same time, he allowed himself, number one, to be there, to be involved in some kind of.
He had to. That's what I'm saying. He had to.
I always tell people this. Listen, I always tell people this. You know, we all have free will. If you want the money, sometimes you'll compromise your free will to be involved in things and maybe do a few things. And when you have a lot of money and power, sometimes you'll decide that I'm going ahead and allow myself to be here with these people doing these particular things. But
remember Kanye West said slavery was a choice?
No,
that's kind of the same thing.
I'll take you back since we're going to go songs, right? I always refer to D'Angelo's song. The Devil's Pie. If you go back and listen to the song, The Devil's Pie, you know, you think about it. Women whine 3 or 4 at a time. All in all, they stand in line for a piece of the devil's pie. So when you start eating the devil's pie, when you put yourself in a situation as a man, then I'm going to be in a room with women I really don't know that well or I know well. I'm allowing all of this stuff to go on. I'm doing these freak offs. I'm involved in all this hedonistic behavior. Then I'm taking a slice of the devil's pie. And everybody knows the devil's pie give you a stomach ache. So at the end of the day, when you start to participate in these things and allowing money and these people to tell you, you can do this, you can do that, I want you to do this and you can do that, you don't have to do what they tell you to do. You do it because you feel like, A, you want to do it, or B, you get some benefit from doing it. And when you start to do that, you make a choice to put these things in question. And I'm not saying that he did anything illegal, but I'm just saying as a man, you know, when you start to do certain things and you start to go certain levels, some radar in your head has to go off as like, you know what? This might not be the thing to do. Is it criminal? No. But is it risky and it could be considered criminal? Maybe. I might need to think about this. So as a man, you got to start making those decisions. And in that situation with Puffy, he didn't. And that's what leads to this. And I'm not saying he's guilty, not guilty, but I'm just telling you, a lot of this situation is caused by his own decision making to allow himself to be in that moment. I'm just being real.
I would say this, and I would say, you know, Derek, by the way, you're not in the chat anymore because I think you muted or you did something. You'd have to like connect your stuff again to come back. But I would say this, he makes a good point because let me give you an example. You know, Vibe magazine, you know what I'm saying? They probably started off as a newsletter or whatever, as a small magazine. But then once you start to get like things from Ford and different big donators, they end up owning you at that point, right?
Yeah.
So what happens is that, okay, so you might have like been doing a little stuff here and there because you're freaky. But then as time goes on and you add Ford into it and big brand names and this, that, the other, and then they say, okay, well, I want you to throw my party. And now because I'm assuming that what's going to happen is as this case goes on, it's going to leave Cassie and it's going to grow into a bigger situation. Right now, we're only a week in or 2 weeks in. Right?
Monica, what I'm trying to explain to you guys, I attended. I'm not even supposed to say a lot of this. But I'm going to give you some inside information. Diddy, Sean Puffy was not even at all of those parties. He was not even at all of the parties. And that's going to come out as well. You guys are going to hear this. You're hearing this first. I'm not even supposed to be saying this. Diddy was not even at over half of the parties. Diddy was not even present. Think about that for a second. Every character that you guys are hearing about, they were not even at a majority of the parties. And the parties that they were at certain parties. So you got to understand, it's 5 different types of parties. So it's 10 levels. Each party has 2 levels. Each party in a 24-hour period, each party has 12 hours. Then the next one has 12 hours. That's 1 level. So it's different levels. Sean Puffy was not even controlled in any type of control past level 2. The only thing he had exposure to was level 1 and level 2. That's it. And I said exposure. I didn't say
Derek.
control. Yeah.
Hey, Derek, let me just say something real quick, all right?
Yeah.
In court, Diddy worked hard, right?
Yeah.
Not to reveal to all of his friends. So all these. Now, I'm not saying you're talking about a room. I'm just clearing the air here.
No, I'm talking about when I was there.
Okay, but listen, we're talking about court, and I just want to make it clear for the audience. These parties that he would have, the white parties or whatever, none of that's in court. And the parties, the freak offs that he was having, it was Diddy, Cassie, Gina, Mia at some point, and some sex workers.
Yep, that's
and
level
Diddy
1.
Listen. Diddy worked very hard that no one would learn about it.
Correct.
So he didn't have these rappers there. at least in court, is not there. So we're not talking about in court. There's nothing about parties where you're having liquor and people going in back rooms and there
Yeah,
rumors about
exactly.
people, whatever.
Exactly.
This is strictly. I just want to make it clear for the audience. This is strictly about freak offs, and Diddy worked very hard so that other people outside of his immediate circle would not know that he was doing this in hotel rooms.
That's correct
So
because
we gotta make
that's
this
correct.
clear and keep.
Make
And
it
we have
clear.
to do, and we
Make it
also have
clear.
to use Occam's razor and keep it real simple so that people
Yes.
see what's happening is right.
Yes.
You get a guy like Meek Mill,
Yeah.
and people just run rapid. They take the audio clip, let's say from a movie, and they
Yeah.
play it, right?
That's
And
it.
now they
That's what they're
saying that
doing.
this is listen, they say that this is Meek Mill. He's just in his career that may be struggling or good or whatever already. He has his own life problems. Somebody put out a salacious gossip on the internet, and now
Yeah.
everybody is saying that Meek Mill was in the room with Diddy. None of this is in court. So we're just trying to today's show, we're strictly, I have an attorney here, and I just want to keep it channeled on. Now, I'm not taking away from your experience. You could have been at the party or what have you. If you were abused, then God bless you. But right now, we got to stay focused on the case, because if not, my audience is going to get very confused, and I don't want that to happen. So
Well,
none of what you're
the only
talking
reason
about
why,
is in the court.
but I'm saying is that could that come up later on? You know, because he's saying he was at a
When
party.
it does, listen, when it does come up, we'll talk about it. But I don't want to be on here talking about something that's not in court, because what's going to happen is this channel is going to become known as a gossiping channel
Yeah.
with a bunch of bullshit. You see what I'm saying? So I don't
Yeah.
want that to happen. So let's keep it focused. Derek, I appreciate you being on, brother. This is no offense, but when
It's
this
just
comes
one
up,
point.
we'll have you come back. All right.
Okay, let's just focus on court. Let's focus on court. I just want you guys to understand. This is just one thing. And I'll scale it down, but listen to what I'm telling you. When they're in court, just pay attention to one. I want you guys to pay attention to one. Anybody that's listening, pay attention to one thing. That's the only thing I'm asking. Monica, it was a book that you had told me about where the masses could be conditioned. And what's the name of that book that you was telling me about? It was a day ago. How they condition the masses to believe in one thing. Do you
No,
notice how you
that was considered a psyop, a psychological.
psyop? Okay, that's what we're dealing with here. So let me just say this thing now, and I'll hit mute. I want to lay this on everybody. In court, just think about this for a second. There's one agenda that's being pushed. There's only a few names that's being pushed. But let me tell you guys this right here. There are thousands of people. Thousands. Just remember that. Not 10 people. Because you're like, wait a minute, this is the same 10 or 20 people. Every time you hear Diddy, you hear the same. Think about it. Why do I only hear the same 10 or 20 people? That's it. It's no more than 23 people. That number is real significant. It's 23 people total that's related to this whole. But listen, it wasn't hundreds. It was thousands of people. So where the other thousands at? Why aren't these names even brought up? Let's just think about it for a second. Let's go back to court. Let's go back to court. So now we're playing, right? So this is a game. So when you go to every news channel, you hear the same people, blah, blah, blah. This person. You say, hold on, I could take all of these people and put them in my truck. Every name that I'm hearing, I can put them in the van. So you mean that's it? So that's it.
Let me go here with
All
that.
right.
And
So-
the reason that's in terms of talking to people in court, because that's the focus of the particular courtroom. You got to talk about if Diddy's on trial, that's what everybody's going to talk about. They're going to talk about Diddy. They're going to try to. The prosecutor is going to try to put Diddy in places where these parties are happening, and they're going to try to put him in control of the parties that are happening, or the freak offs, not parties, the freak offs that are happening. They want to place him in control of those freak offs, because if they place him in control of those freak offs and the related things to those freak offs, then they're going to be able to convict him of the RICO. And that's part of the reason why you get a lot of this there. In addition to that, as prosecutors, you don't want to be talking about thousands of people. You're going to confuse the jury. So for the most part, you're going to focus on 10, 15, 20 people that know what was going on, and you're going to try to use those particular individuals to show that Puffy was in control of this illegal behavior, and that it was in violation of particular federal statutes, and it was a organized criminal organization doing so. So that's really why that's happening. It's not a situation where they don't want to talk about thousands of people. If I'm a prosecutor, that's dumb because I can actually confuse my jury. I give an example. Remember the Casey Anthony case and how she got found not guilty? You know what the biggest problem with the people on Casey Anthony case where they think that she killed her baby and they found her not guilty? The jury, because the case went on for, they had hundreds of witnesses, if I'm correct. The jury lost track of what was actually going on. So when them losing track, that was reasonable doubt to them. So you want to make it simple. So bringing up 40, 50, 60, 70, 100 people, that's not what you want to do. You want to get your core 15, 20 people so that the jury can follow the bouncing ball so that they can understand what's going on. You don't want to talk about hundreds and thousands of people because if you do that, the jury is gonna be confused and you're not going to be able to make your case. So that's why that's happening.
So listen, I've been sitting in court every day, and I noticed they started off saying that the trial would go on for 8 weeks, and now they've cut it down to 6. And even the judge asked on Friday, "Hey, can we cut it down some more?" And the prosecutors basically said, it's going to be a roughly six-week trial. Do you think that's the strategy, just to narrow it down to keep the jury focused so they could send them out of there?
Yeah, because if you talk about too much, man, people will forget. Like, for example, if I'm a prosecutor and I got a bunch of good witnesses in a row and some of my other witnesses are going to say the same thing, then why am I going to have them up there? Or maybe one of the witnesses might end up being a weak witness for me. Do I want to end on a weak witness when I had like 5 or 6 strong in a row? Sometimes you got to know when to fold them so that your jury doesn't get confused. And you got to realize that in the end, the defense is going to go last. So you got to be careful.
That's the exact same point that I was making.
Yeah.
So basically what we're witnessing, I just want you guys to know that what we're witnessing is a clown show. In terms of the courtroom and this whole thing, it's a make-believe. I'm just letting you guys know, just like Mr. Rogers. This is something that's been sketched out. It's something that's been planned. There's rooms of people. There's a small room of people that sit back and they're guiding this whole thing. And that's what you guys are saying, that, hey, listen, we're going to condense this down. We're going to exclude all of the thousands of people who are involved. And I'm not talking about just participants. I'm talking about the people who are really responsible for this thing. The people who are really responsible for this thing. And it's really only about 17 people that's responsible for this. And Sean is not one of those people. He's just a player. And I tell people, I say, listen, if you want to stop police brutality, you don't talk to the police. You don't talk to the people that's involved. You talk to the people that they work for, the people who sent them there. You have to change it from a different level. And they can change it. Let me give you an example. When you look at police brutality, just as an example, and I'm going to show you how this relates to this. You're dealing with goons, right? And that's what Sean Puffy is. He's just a goon. You say, well, how do we stop this? How do we stop this? Are we going to march? We're going to protest. We're going to march what? The police? They were sent to do a job.
This has nothing to do with the case, man.
Okay, but I'm just trying to make a point here. He was sent there. What I'm saying, what I'm just saying is that he was sent there, and you want to, but it's way more people that's involved in this thing. He's just a puppet. That's why I was using the police as an example. It's just a puppet.
We hear you. Calvin, when you look at the jury, the profile of the jury guys, could you kind of tell me like what the legal reasoning or strategy behind it was? Because it seems like most of them are like in their 50s and 60s. They're more into investment banking. One of them is like professor of molecular biology, and then they have like this one person who's like 30 years old who just works in the deli, and then another person who's like I think also in their 40s who's like an investment banker. But to me, it seems like most of the people are like a little bit older and like a lot more analytical. Do you have an idea why they decided to pick that as the jury?
Well, each side gets a number of strikes. So you get rid of some jurors based on their questionnaires. Now, I always tell people African Americans typically get rid of themselves by 2 reasons. Number one, they just don't show up. Or number 2, they answer questions in a way that are so forward that they eliminate themselves based on the rules. or they eliminate themselves on purpose because a lot of them have jobs and stuff that they have to go through and they don't want to be involved in the process. So if I'm living check to check, week to week, I don't want to take 6 weeks off my job to serve on a jury when I'm not going to make the money that I was going to make at work. That doesn't help me. So a lot of us don't want to do that. And then ones that feel strongly about serving, we feel so strongly about serving that we're going to tip the state off to get rid of us on jury selection. And then some of us just don't participate in the process. Now, on the prosecution standpoint, I want jurors that are older, more analytical, more conservative, because if I have a very conservative jury, they're not going to understand, well, why is he doing these freak offs? That's immoral. That's not natural. That's not normal. I'm going to be less accepting of the standard of behavior of the younger folks. Because
Right.
So that's what I'm going to try to do. That's just that's good work by them. And it's easier for them to get their jury because people that typically are a little more open-minded like us, we're going to get rid of ourselves.
Makes perfect sense. Thank you.
So let me just bring this out. The day before, I think it was Friday before the trial started. Actually, they struck him on Monday morning. There was 9 black jurors that were men, and they struck 7, only leaving 2, and the defense really threw a fit about that. And they left 8 white men on the jury. Now, this includes the 12 plus the 6 extra. There's 8 white men in that. There's only about 4 black women. There's one older white Caucasian lady, one older Spanish-looking lady, and then there's 2 men that look kind of Middle Eastern. Maybe one is Spanish, one is Middle Eastern. So that gives you a little general idea, but one of them looks rather confused, like he has a little trouble maneuvering around. So I wonder about that. How did he end up being on the jury? But that's the general makeup of the jury. What do you think, Calvin?
Well, sometimes it happens because sometimes if you're too quiet, sometimes you end up on the jury because some people will say, well, you know what? If they're quiet, they're thinking about things. I don't know is better than somebody that I know is not going to go my way. And so when it comes to striking black people, we tend to have a way of answering questions where we get rid of ourselves. Like, we don't trust the police. So if I ask a question about police, I'm going to tip the state off that I don't like police. I don't like the federal government. I don't like investigators. They're going to be able to see my facial expressions. They're going to be able to see my answers. Even if I don't say anything, I may give the side eye. I may raise my eyebrow. I may shake my head. And they're allowed to get rid of people based off of that, just on the feeling. As long as they know it's not, as long as it's not doing it specifically for race, if they can just say, they nodded their head and I wanted to get rid of them, so I got rid of them. And so that's typically what happens. You know, a lot of us black folks, we're so ready to hand out the kind of justice we want. We're telling the state that we're going to hand out the justice that we want, and we may not be willing to believe the state, and so they're going to figure out ways to get rid of us.
Okay, so Nick is asking, where do I find the juror demographics on this case? I'd like to see.
Well, basically, the summons go out, and they're kind of set up in random numbers. Sometimes you can request a jury shuffle. So when you get a federal jury, sometimes if you voted in your past elections, you're in the pool. So typically, people that vote end up potentially serving on juries. And so they can just randomly call you. And then if you don't like the makeup, you can shuffle them. You can request a shuffle and they can bring them in a different order. But what happens is a lot of times you get, like, I get 10 strikes, which means I can get rid of 10. You can get rid of 10. And then we can get rid of other ones for cause. If somebody say they can't follow the law, then I get rid of them because they won't follow the law. And I don't have to use one of my strikes. So but then we only get so many, and they may bring 60, 70, 100 in there at a time, and you kind of get what's left over. And so sometimes that's kind of what happens. So when it comes to demographics, you just don't know what you're going to get. Initially, there may have been plenty of black people that were eligible, but they either got rid of themselves by being too deep in the pool, or the way they answer questions, or maybe they gave somebody a look and they didn't like the look, and they just said, I don't want that person on my jury.
But being that this is a federal, being that this is a federal case, where did they pull the jurors from Was it the entire state of New York?
Typically, they can do that. But typically they try to get them from around that area because you don't want to burden somebody having to travel too far. So typically, if it's in New York, they're gonna use the city of New York or the surrounding counties in New York to pick their juries. And typically, that particular county where that particular federal jury sits at, that's where they're gonna bring their people from. That particular county that's in. It's easier to get people in that area.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Africa.
Yeah, I was gonna say to the person who was asking in the comments, Nix, I got it at people.com. Just type in Google who's on the jury in Diddy's sex trafficking trial, and the article should pop up. Again, it's people.com. Just type in who's on the jury in Diddy's sex trafficking trial.
I was there.
And the profile will come up. Go ahead, Mel.
Go ahead, Mel.
Okay, I didn't copy what he said. Say it again. I couldn't make out what he said.
I was somebody in the comment was asking where I found the article from, and I was saying that I found it at people.com. All they have to do is just type in who is on the jury in Diddy's sex trafficking trial, and that article will pop up, and they'll be able to see the juror profile. And I was saying you could go ahead with your whatever.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Very good.
And a lot of times, let me tell you this. Sometimes you can answer a question a particular way, and they go, I don't like the answer as a prosecutor, and they can get rid of you for just using their strike. Or let's say I have some people that go to court and say, well, I don't like to sit in judgment of people, or I can't follow the law. If I don't think the law is fair, I'm not going to follow it. Well, they can strike you for that. Because some people will know a law, will know that it's there, but they don't want to follow it. And they can strike you for not following the law.
Well, can you break down the 12 jurors plus the alternative? How does that work out in the grand scheme of things?
Well, just in case somebody gets sick or can't show up, or they have to leave, or let's say the jury involves themselves in some kind of misconduct and they have to let one particular juror off, you want to have those jurors to replace them. Because what you don't want to do is sit there for 6 weeks, and at the end, a juror makes a mistake and blows the whole thing up, and you can't get rid of that one juror, and you have to start over. So what you do is you get alternatives or alternates that can watch the case, and they understand that if one of these jurors gets sick or has to be removed, if they're going to take the juror's place.
Okay, so in this particular case, the prosecutor has 6 Caucasian women. Do you think that's by design?
Yes, it is by design. And I'll tell you, unfortunately, me being in Dallas, Texas, we wrote the roadmap of how to get you a white jury. The whole reason why we had more exonerations than any county, I live in Dallas County in Dallas, Texas. We had more exonerations than any other county in the entire country, our county and Harris County. But our county in particular, because there was a DA named Mr. Wade, and they wrote the book. They wrote the book on how to eliminate African Americans from juries, and how to get good white folks on juries to make sure that black folks get convicted. They wrote the book. When I say they wrote the book, they put out different techniques to be able to get rid of African American jurors and jurors of color.
Wow.
So do you think it's a railroad that there's almost only one juror of color in this whole situation?
No, we get rid of our, number one, we don't participate in the jury process enough, so some of that's on us. And number two, we don't educate ourselves on how to remain on jurors. Sometimes we answer so aggressively, or so we act like we know it all, or we answer aggressively, or we create situations where we're not on the juror. That's why we're not on juries. We do that to ourselves. They don't have to do that to us. Part of it is doing what they're doing, but we help ourselves get off juries. I'm just being honest.
Okay, so in this particular case, the prosecutors are sitting in front of the defense. So you have them sitting, straight across, and the defense can really see what the prosecutors are doing on their computers. Why is that the case? Usually they're side by side in the courtroom.
It just depends on the makeup of that particular courtroom. Some courtrooms are set up differently, and in that courtroom, they just might be the way that they have it set up.
In this particular case, I noticed that when they were going through some of the explicit testimony, that Diddy's daughters, his young kids, were there. Is that normal to have them there during a case like this?
It's not, most of the time you want to have the young people out, but the girls are at least 17 or 18. I think they're graduating high school, so they're really considered of age. Usually you don't want your kids to hear stuff like that, but at the same time, that's how it can be sometimes. I'm just being honest with you, man. Sometimes you're gonna hear the good and bad with the ugly, and you want your kids there just to support you. And let's be honest, those kids, they've saw a lot and they know a lot more than we ever wanted them to see. So just a little bit more ain't gonna hurt.
Does that skew the jury? Like, oh, okay, well, his family's here, so it might not be.
It doesn't really. I mean, you're there to support your loved one, good or bad or ugly. You know, you're just there for your loved one. That's your dad, no matter what they say he did or didn't do.
Do you think that a lot of his friends that are celebrities should show up?
Should do
I
what?
know we touched on it. Do you think a lot of his celebrity friends should show up to show solidarity with him, or you think it's just too much?
I think that's too much because, let's be honest, some celebrities don't know what other celebrities do when they by themselves. I mean, you don't know what some of these folks do, and you just don't know. I mean, being around pro athletes and people that are in entertainment, it's a little funny because sometimes you see a little bit of you can tell there's a little bit of that people are doing things that they probably shouldn't do. You know what I mean? And you can pick up on it, and you don't want everybody knowing your business. And then if you're a celebrity, and let's say, like I said before, you don't know what some of these other celebrities are doing. So if I'm Russell Simmons, am I showing up to Diddy's trial? Hell no, they might look at some of my stuff. Or if I'm so-and-so, I got a couple of issues I had last year or 5 years ago. They might start looking into my stuff. And a lot of these guys, because they have money and they have access, they got a bunch of skeletons in their closet. I don't want to be standing next to the closet that's open. They might try to open mine. That's the way a lot of these guys are going to look. And that's just what it is. That's just being honest.
Wow. You know what I've also noticed is that all those like podcasts that were really talking about Diddy before this trial have stopped. Remember, you had like the Drink Champs and you had like the what's the other one with Case and Mace and Hayes and what it wasn't Cameron and all that stuff that was going on. They have ceased. They stopped talking about it, and now you just have smaller YouTubers that are not as celebrity minded.
But you know why? Because they still got to operate in this industry, right? So you don't want to be talking about kicking somebody when they're down. Number one. Number two, if you're Mace, I know Mace saw some stuff he ain't supposed to see. And Nori's pretty hooked up with everybody. Nori know everybody. So, you got situations where some of these guys that either may have been at a party, left early, or been at a party, stayed late, or maybe they got their own stuff going on and they're like, man, I'm gonna leave it alone. Or then some of them are friends with Puffy. Like, you have to realize Puffy has a lot of contacts in the industry. Puffy did a lot for a lot of people. Now, in this situation, we're just saying Puffy in a negative light, but Puffy has also helped a lot of people. Puffy's helped Nori, he's helped Buster, he's helped a lot of folks. And so sometimes you show solidarity just by shutting your mouth and not talking about them on your podcast, because that's making it worse for them. So sometimes you just be like, I ain't gonna touch that. Like I tell you, it's a case here in Dallas I really won't talk about because I know a lot of the people involved. And I just don't want to touch it because I got personal relationships with some folks. It's the entertainment going through something. It's an entertainer going through something right now that I really won't touch because I'm like, I know it's people. I got people that some of my.
That's what I was trying to tell you guys about me and the party.
Yeah.
It's the same thing, but you're saying the same thing. I'm saying I have information. Same thing how you're saying that. I got information that I'm telling you guys because what you're saying, it doesn't really pertain to the court case. It's hearsay. But what I'm saying is that we keep talking about Puffy, but there's a bigger picture. He's just like a little ant. That's what I'm trying to explain. So this whole thing is just it's like it's a circus. It's not even real because it's the people that
how's it not real when he's facing life?
Okay, because he's a sacrifice.
That's very real.
No, it's a sacrifice. That's why. If you understand, but if you believe in your heart that hey, this whole thing is just this one little guy. If that's what you believe, then that's what you believe. But I encourage you to just open your mind up just a little bit more and say, wait a minute, maybe Derek is saying something here. I was there. Puffy was not even at a majority of those parties. That's what I'm trying to explain. He's just put out there.
I think you need to go explain that to the lawyers.
But let me tell y'all this. Let me say this about
It's
it.
way beyond that. It's
Let- let-
because it's a, anytime you sign up to be a sacrifice, I mean, this is what it is.
let-
This is
let me-
what you're looking at. If you're looking at is a person being persecuted and prosecuted, and that's it. So people have been told to stay away from him.
Okay,
They know they
let me
have to
tell you
stay away
this.
from him. So
Let me
it's
tell
not
you-
what I'm
let me
saying.
tell you-
Let me just make this last point, please. Make this last point. The people are not staying away from him because of lack of income or whatever. They have been told to stay away from him. That's what happens in level 3 and level 4. You and 5. That's it. When something like this happens, it's an agreement. You cannot say anything. You cannot move forward. You can't speak on behalf. That's it. There's
And,
thousands of people that have to remain silent.
and let me tell you this. I can definitely understand that. Listen, with money comes with power, and when you got a lot of power, of course, you can control narratives. You can tell people that you have control of their networks or their well-being. Hey, man, I need you to sit down on this one. I need you to stay away from this one. I get that. We definitely understand that. But with that being said, we still have to deal with this criminal case, and so we don't want to go too far away from the actual criminal case because, like Mel said, it can turn into something else. And my whole deal is we want to discuss the legal end of it and the day-to-day what's happening in this particular court case. So we just want to stick to that. I definitely understand what you're saying, Derek. I'm not trying to minimize that. We definitely understand that they're very wealthy people, very powerful people with money that control things. We definitely understand that, especially with everything that's happened in the last 3 or 4 years. I think we're more aware of that nowadays. But at the same time, I'm with Mel. I want to stick to kind of what we're doing here. I don't want to get outside of that.
So listen, Derek, we're gonna bring you on when the case gets a little bit more further in and they bring up those parties. And if you have more information, we're gonna bring you back on.
Okay, yeah. Thank you.
because-
Okay, I understand what you guys are saying. Yeah, and when you bring me back on, we're going to talk about the levels and the other people because they're right in front of us. So this is just a sacrifice. That's all. It's just and it's not really a big deal because he signed up for it. Hey, it's just time to go. That's it. And thank you, Monica. I understand what you're saying. Thanks to everybody.
Yeah.
And I'll hit Milton. Let's continue on with this
Like-
game that they're playing, and we have to monitor the game that they're playing. I understand. We just play
like
along.
I said, it all goes back to the devil's spot. Drugs and thugs, women, wine, 3 or 4 at a time. All in all, stand in line for a piece of the devil's pie. And when you eat the pie, you get sick. So I don't care who you are. When you start to sacrifice your morals to get some money, then you allow yourself to be around people that are doing things that could cause you to be in a position you're in right now.
So
That's the real part of it.
Very
So,
well said.
real
Very
quick,
well said. Very well said. Good follow-up.
So I want to thank you so much for joining, Derek. Africa. So final thoughts that you want to say, and then we're gonna get back to just Africa and Derek. Give some final thoughts, and then we're gonna get back to Calvin and Mel because we're gonna about to wrap this up. But go ahead.
Oh, final thoughts. I just want to say thanks a lot to Mel and DJ Genesis for allowing us to ask a few questions. That's very, very kind and generous of you. And then also thank you, Calvin, for sharing your knowledge with you. I deeply appreciate it. And I just look forward to the case on Tuesday, and I'm also looking forward to coming back to the platform to see the further updates. Thanks a lot.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you. And Derek just dropped down, so I guess he didn't want to have any final thoughts. But yeah, so sorry about that. I just, we had people come up. People gonna have different thoughts. Wait, hold on. Derek, did you want to say something real quick? Final thoughts.
Yes.
Go ahead.
One last final thought. So when you guys walk away, just look at this trial as I look at it in terms of whenever a person signs up for a job. If you make it to the end of the road, then you get a 401k after X amount of years. You get to spend time with your family. You can retire. But if something happens between that time, all of the work that you put in and everything you work for is going to be gone. So so there's nothing new to us. So with him in this situation, he didn't make it to the 401k. We're all in the same situation, it's just different levels. Thanks, everybody.
Appreciate it, my brother.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay,
right.
so let's get back to the show. Nick was asking you, Calvin, will Diddy bring anyone down with him? And do you see Diddy taking the stand? That's what everybody wants to know.
I don't know if Diddy's gonna take the stand. It just depends on how the rest of this goes. If he would have to ask me, would I take the stand if I were him now? Probably not. I think there's too much that they could probably ask him about. But I don't think he's gonna bring anybody down. I think a lot of it is that's why he really probably understands that people can't show up there for him. He don't want to bring nobody down. I mean, Diddy, because you have to realize, like, part of the reason that he actually is going to trial is because he don't want to be in a position where he's like, I got to pull these people down. I got to talk to them folks and tell them A, B, and C. He's not trying to bring anybody down like that. And I think part of it is, as a black man, he's around a lot of other wealthy African-American men. And he don't want them to have the same problems that he having right now, because that doesn't help him. And it doesn't help the culture. And he don't want to be seen as a person where he brings down the whole culture. Now, Diddy's hurt the culture, man. I'm not gonna lie, man. I mean, right now, you know, like I said, they won't listen to R. Kelly's music anymore. Now you're gonna take Puffy music from me too. What am I gonna listen to? I mean, right. I can't, I can't listen to. I need a girl either version right now because I'm thinking about this. So you have to start thinking about that. I don't think he's gonna bring anybody down. I'm just being honest.
Right. So let me ask you this. This is something that's been on my mind a lot. Can they go back? Remember there was an incident where Diddy had a party and some people were actually killed, trampled over or something.
Oh yeah, I know the whole deal. You want me to tell about that?
Or what about one more? I'm sorry. The case with Shine where the girl was shot in the face, and then after Shine came out of prison, the girl says, I saw Diddy shoot me. Can they go back for that on the RICO?
I don't think they can go back on that RICO because that would be double jeopardy. And the situation that Jamel you're referring to, Heavy D and Puppet gave a party way back in the day, and they oversold the party. Not only did they oversold the party, they skimped on security, right? Because I've heard that the Fruit of Islam, FOI, the Fruit of Islam was supposed to do security for the event, and Puffy and Heavy D didn't want to pay the Fruit of Islam to do the security, so they let too many people in. They disregarded the limits of the people that were let in, and there was a second level of the venue that was upstairs, and then you had the prop part on the downstairs. And what happened was it collapsed, and a lot of people got hurt, and ended up. One lady passed away and lost her baby, if I'm correct. Remember one of the people that really started Puffy's rise was a guy named Father MC. And people forget about Father MC, but Father MC, man, hey man, that's who I wanted to be like. I was in high school. I ain't gonna lie. He was smooth,
I remember that.
He rapped. He had the clothes. That's how I dressed. I had to, that was me. That's how I did my thing. But he had Father MC, and people don't understand how important Father MC was. Father MC introduced us to one of the greatest vocalists we've ever had in R&B, which is Mary J. Blige, and they introduced us to Jodeci. The first song Jodeci had that I knew who Jodeci was would Treat Them Like They Want to Be Treated. They sung the hook on that song. And Father MC's second hit, I'll Do For You, Mary J. Blige sung the hook on that one. So that was our introduction to Mary J. Blige and Jodeci. But Father MC's girlfriend, who was pregnant at the time, I think she passed away and lost her baby because of the collapse.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
That's scary business. Let me ask you another question. This is something I've been thinking about too. When Diddy was getting arrested, they made a deal with him. Let's say he's supposed to be picked up on the 2nd. They came in and got him on the 1st. Why would the government do that if you're trying to negotiate a deal with your attorney and everybody's trying to keep it honest?
Because you can try to get rid of stuff. They wanted to surprise them. I don't trust the government like that. I just don't. And I think you're foolish if you trust them like that. Listen, I'm telling you my introduction to dealing with the government. I remember I was representing somebody, and I ended up representing their husband, but I was texting her to help the husband. And we had business going on between there and there. And when I realized, when I got the discovery and I saw my text to everybody in these people's phones, I was like, oh no, that's it for me. That's it for me. When I deal with federal cases, I don't do text and I don't do our phones. We got some business to talk about. You would not talk to me on my phone. I will go to another phone. Go to another phone. And don't call me from a jail phone. We don't do none of that no more. I don't trust the government like that because they always are going to surprise you. The art of surprise is to their benefit. Puffy was going to turn himself in on the second. They got him on the first, so he couldn't get rid of everything he had. Like, if he knew that they were coming, he'd have flushed everything. He got rid of everything. They'd have picked him up when they found nothing in the room. But what do? They pick him up on the first. Now they got his kit with him. You know what I mean? They got a shoot-up kit. They got the drug kit. They got all the baby oil. They got all this extra stuff. So he can't get rid of stuff because they know he getting ready to turn himself in. He going to get rid of the evidence. I'm going to get my people. Go get everything. Dump it.
Right. So
he had a shoot-up kit.
Here's my final.
I don't know if he had a shoot-up kit, but he had drugs and his drug kit and all this other stuff they said he had.
Genesis, you done?
Oh no! When I leave, I just want that. I said he said the shoot-up kit. That was like what a shooter. He was shooting.
Okay, well, I mean, just whatever drugs he was going to take, whatever he's going to use, they found it, and they found it because they surprised him probably. Because of course, if he's going to turn himself in, he ain't going to have it in the room, and he probably was going to walk down and turn himself in. So they were able to get into a room.
Right.
Come on.
So all of these people signed an NDA, and if you really think about Diddy's case, right, he paid her within 24 hours so that he couldn't or wouldn't have to go through all of this, and the Fed still got him. Can he get his money back from Cassie now that we see that she's a big culprit in all this as well?
They really can't because she can't speak publicly about it. But if she's subpoenaed for it, you can't agree to not talk about something when you have a case, when there's a federal criminal case. He didn't want it to come out in the civil area because he knew he can't control that. But when it comes to criminal stuff, you can't sign the NDA to get people to not talk about something criminally because you're going to be directed to answer the question, or they're going to hold you in contempt. Just because you have an agreement with that person, you ain't got an agreement with the government that says you can't talk about it.
Wow, that's amazing. So it all came raining down on him. Before we shut down, or at least I definitely have to peace out at this point. But Genesis, can you play the video of Gene Deal? And I want to get your viewpoint on it, Calvin Johnson.
Gene, if you've seen all of that and was at puppy parties,
play with me, bro.
And you the same size as Uncle Phil, and you the same size as Professor Ogilvy, and you the same size as Lucien Griez, Clive Davis. Okay. Why you want us to believe that you weren't at them parties participating in that behavior, Gene? We heard everything you got to say on the line, Gene. Gene, are you a victim of Diddy?
All right. Were you able to see that, Calvin?
Yeah, I was.
Okay. Genesis, run that back one more time.
Gene, if you've seen all of that and was at puppy parties,
play with me, bro.
And you the same size as Uncle Phil, and you the same size as Professor Ogilvy, and you the same size as Lucien Griez, Clive Davis. Okay. Why you want us to believe that you weren't at them parties participating in that behavior, Gene? We heard everything you got to say on the line, Gene. Gene, are you a victim of Diddy?
Give him some space, y'all. Hold up. Okay, hold on.
So in the video, you see Tisa tells a lot of her supporters are now supporting this channel. So if you're watching, I welcome you guys in open arms. Also, the person that's talking to Gene in this video is a guy named Denard, and quite a few of his followers have come over too. But I want to ask you this in conclusion. Do you think that Gene Deal will take the stand based on, he was probably you probably remember his time frame with being with Diddy,
man.
Right?
Yeah, I do remember him, and he's one of these guys where I always paid attention to guys like Gene because they are the muscle. And when I say they the muscle, when you're an exec like this and you're involved in hip hop, you always going to have muscle around. And when I say muscle, you know, Gene Deal was the muscle for Puffy, right? And when you go to the West Coast, you got people like Big U. They provide protection. You got people like Whack 100. They provide protection. I remember that they were talking stories about how Eminem was getting pressed out on the West Coast by Suge and them. And Eminem was smart. He went and got them Samoan brothers out in California. I think out from San Diego, got some Samoan brothers. And them Samoan brothers, man, they tight, they loyal. Their group is unbreakable. So he had the protection from them. Gene Deal was some of that protection that Puffy had back in the day. And he probably was loyal to Puffy, but Puffy probably decided to stop paying him. And or decided he wasn't worth it anymore. And then Gene probably started left and was like, well, I'm just gonna go ahead and start talking about everything because I've been working for you all these years. I'm gonna get paid. Because Gene probably is one of those guys that's the muscle around Puffy that kept a lot of things from happening to Puffy and Big back in the day. Guys like Gene, man, they some gangsters. And listen, they out here talking and you think that they're nice. Nah, man, them guys are ready to get it. That's how they make their money.
Yeah, I've met Gene Deal. I'm 6 feet tall, but this guy's massive and but really nice guy, at least in my interactions that I've been around him. So I'm not gonna throw anything his way. But listen, I just want to say thank you, man. We've run 3 hours now, and I think it's time to pull the plug.
Yeah, man, we went
but
longer than we thought.
But let me tell you, you're a superstar, and a lot of my followers, they love you because you answer the questions and you give us the inside scoop from a legal perspective, and you're a defense attorney. I think some people get a little perturbed because you're actually talking about ways that this case can be beaten, and people don't want to hear it because a lot of people are mad at Puff. I have one video on TikTok that has about 3 million views, and a person made a comment, and I think about 20,000 people responded because there was something positive about Diddy, and people just went berserk. But we do find that a lot of people have started to come on Diddy's side. It seems like the media has changed ever since Cassie made her testimony. But for the most part, I'm being in the courtroom every day, getting to see all of the details. It's a big sacrifice to go do this, but I'm happy to do it, to come back and give you guys an insight, real insight about what's happening in the courtroom, not adding anything to the story, just giving you the hard facts so that you can kind of see through the smoke of some of these salacious stories that people often tell. There are many cases that I will be delving into, and I look forward to bringing back the facts to you guys, and also having Calvin Johnson, a very affluent attorney in Texas, come on and really break it down and give you some insight so that you can see where the case is going, because we want to know. A lot of us watch Law and Crime. Actually, Law and Crime is in the courtroom. I see all of these people. Tisa Tells is there. I represent Tasha K. There's so many big channels there. And one thing I noticed, the jury is looking at us in the audience and trying to determine our channels. I can see that. I can see, because sometimes they talk to each other and they're pointing like, that's such and such. So in conclusion, I'm going to ask you this one last question. I don't know if you can answer it, but I try to ask the questions from being in the courtroom and what I think people want to hear. Do you think that the jury is actually watching this online? Not this channel, but just watching what's happening online.
I think that they are. They won't admit it because that's just human nature. It's human nature that we think about it. But at the same time, even though they are watching it online, in this situation, I think that they get more information about it, because even with us being in there, you being in there, they get to watch every little single thing. They get to go back and talk to each other. So I think that they do watch, but I don't think that they're going to be swayed by what they watch online. I think that they're going to be swayed by what they hear in the courtroom, and then be swayed by their personal experiences. I always tell people there's 2 ways to look at things. And I got a daughter, so man, I don't want anybody some talking about hitting a woman, man, I got a problem with, and that's me being me. However, people who have sons go, well, I don't want my son to get shaken down by a woman because of money, because he decided to sleep with her and he's decided to leave her alone, and now she wants to come at him for money. So there's always different ways and that people can look at things and have their own opinions about it. But on this channel, and I know when we talk to each other, we're just trying to give angles, and we're not supporting one or the other. We're just trying to give the information and give perspective. So please, if you're watching us, don't blame us for, oh, you're just trying to defend him. No, I'm just saying what I would do if I was defending him. And then also what his problems are, what his strong points and what his weak points are. So we're just talking about the case. But at the same time, I think that they're watching. I think that they will watch. And I think we provide a great service to give perspective to what's going on, you know?
Absolutely. I believe you with all my heart. You did a good job. And I just want to say, someone in the audience, Andorra Taylor says, why is the jury not sequestered? I think you touched on it before, but would you like to answer?
Yeah. Well, you know what? Sometimes they're going to find out little things anyway. And you don't want them to feel like they're cooped up, right? Because when they start deliberating, you don't want them to rush through it. You want them to pay attention. You want them to have some kind of freedom. Some people will just rush through a case because they're tired of being around the same people. Sometimes they just want to go home, sleep in their own bed. And sequestering the jury also is actually kind of costly. In today's world, they're just going to have access to certain things. You just got to tell them not to do it and just trust that they won't.
All right. So, as far as watching the world, thank you guys for subscribing and liking and all you do to support. I just want to, in conclusion, I know we're only 2 weeks down as far as the trial and 3 weeks, including the jury selection. But where are you at right now? Everybody wants to know. Does Diddy walk or does he stay locked up for life? Where are you at just at the end of the second week as far as him getting off the RICO?
I think he still has a chance, but I think the more witnesses they bring up, the tougher it's going to get for him, because I'm smart enough to know they're going to put their weaker witnesses in the beginning. And I think they've gotten past Cassie and Don Richards. And I think as the witnesses go on, they're going to get stronger for convicting Diddy of whatever they're saying he's doing. So they're going to start putting their experts out there to show that certain things are happening. They're going to put their stronger witnesses up there to show that certain things were happening and that he was directing it. And then I think because we think about Diddy, I mean, Diddy been around a long time. We're talking 30 years of doing this, maybe longer than that since I've been knowing of Diddy. I think there's a lot of skeletons in that closet that they can try to pull out. And when the feds are coming for you, like I said, it's like cutting the light on and the roaches are running. And I think there's going to be too many roaches running to where he's going to miss everything. So I think they have a good chance of convicting him. But I do think he has a very, very good defense team that he has put together. And I think that they're going to probably shoot holes in the majority of the stuff that the government is doing. Right now, I'm leaning toward conviction. But right now, I still think a puppy still has a chance. He hadn't put his case on yet. And I'll say this. So far, with what the defense had and what the prosecution had, I think Puppy is actually doing pretty good when you really look at what he was facing when he came in here. So I think there's a way out for him. It just depends on how the jury sees it. But I still think he still has a chance at this point. But if he had to put $1 million on it, I would bet toward conviction. But at the same time, I still think there's room for him to try to wiggle out of this.
All right, very good. I'll give you my perspective before we take off too. I've been in the courtroom every day, and I kind of have a different conclusion, very similar to yours, but I have a different twist. I see the prosecutors; they're like an A team, and I see why they win 95% of their cases because they come strong and they hit hard. Every day they're dropping shoes. They're showing force, dragging her back with the video. They played that video so many times that it almost made everybody cringe, right? I do know that they didn't want to show it too much because then the jury gets insensitive to it, and that could give Diddy more of a win. But there's other parts about the chef being beaten. The executive assistant testifies about his fears, and they quit because he was beating Cassie so bad. There's Kid Cudi that I saw coming to the courtroom, and he talks about the burglary. He talks about he's had a peaceful life. The video we just showed, we see that he's like not a corn butt, but like a real calm type of guy. It doesn't seem like he has a lot of trouble. And he testified to that. He says prior to him cheating with Cassie, which Cassie told him, that's something we should talk about. Cassie told him that her and Diddy had broken up. So he just was getting with her. Now, Diddy was upset with him because he had asked Kid Cudi to do an album with her, produce a song for her, and he took her in as his girl. So Diddy felt betrayed, so he's upset. And that's in line with what the defense is saying here. But for the most part, Kid Cudi says prior to this cheating with Cassie, he had no trouble in his life. And after that, when him and Diddy had peace, he had no more trouble in his life. So he painted a real strong picture about this event. Now, I have to tell you this before I go. One morning, Cassie calls Kid Cudi about 5:30 in the morning, and he picks her up. They go to a hotel. Capricorn, who is Diddy's one of his main employees, she calls Cassie and says, "Hey, Diddy's upset. We're at Kid Cudi's house. Diddy's and his security guard are in the house." So then Cassie tells Kid Cudi calls Diddy, says, "Hey, where you at, man? You in my house? You know, whatever, Playboy, whatever." So Diddy allegedly is in his house. Diddy allegedly opens the Christmas gifts that he had for his family. It was around the end of 2011. Diddy opens the gifts. Diddy takes the dog and put the dog in the bathroom. This is all according to testimony. This is all, I'm just telling you what we heard, okay? The dog gets traumatized. Eventually the dog, probably dies down the line. But all of this stuff comes out in court. But check this out. On Tuesday, when we go back to court, Capricorn, the one that's in the car that called Cassie, and then Cassie told Kid Cudi called Diddy, the one that's in the car, she's going to testify that she was kidnapped. So it's trouble, brother. That's all I can tell you. That's how I'm going to end my story, brother. But I'll be back to tell you what's going to happen next week. And DJ Genesis, if you want to close out. But thank you guys for tuning in to Watching the World. We appreciate you. I know Calvin do. I do. DJ Genesis, you want to take us home?
This is a crazy case, and I just thank Mel and Attorney Johnson, Calvin Johnson, for their input. Thank you for the guests that actually came on today. Listen, it's going to be more uncovered, and we're going to be back here next. Are we going to be doing Saturday or Sunday? What days are going to do this?
Let's do it Sunday, Saturdays. I think Sunday, we'll get a few more views of it, because people on Sunday afternoon, they're chilling. They're more likely to open up something like this and watch it. Saturday, people running out and about doing stuff with their kids, doing stuff. I think Sunday is a good end of the week chill day before Monday starts, and it actually gives a wrap up to what's going to happen on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So I think Sunday is the day we can do it around 2:00 is fine.
All right. So make sure you guys come back next Sunday at 2:00 to have that whole week roundup. And to make sure, and then, we'll have touch points throughout the week, but, shouts out to Mel, shouts out to Attorney Calvin Johnson. If you're in the Dallas, Texas area, please check out his website, theywon'tletmeout.com. His phone number 214-565-5600. If you run into a jam with the legal system, please give him a call. Remember that number, 214-565-5600. If you're in the Dallas, Texas area and you get caught up, go ahead and give him a call. That's a very easy number to remember. 214-565-5600. Thank you, Mel. Watching the World 777. Shouts out to everyone who's been in the chat. And peace.